Gold with Danny Golding starts now.
That's gold, Jerry. Gold!
Touchdown! San Francisco!
And the Giants have won. They have won the World Series for the third time in 5 years.
The road to redemption has brought the Warriors back home. The Golden State Warriors are the 2017 NBA champions.
Now your host, Danny Golden.
What is going down, YouTube, Twitch, Twitter? Welcome to the Gold with Danny Golding. Hope everyone had a great Christmas, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, whatever you celebrate. Hope everyone had a great holiday. Of course, we're only a couple days away from the new year 2025, and we got Monday Night Football in Santa Clara. A rematch of the NFC Championship game last year, where the Niners come back from being down 24-7 at halftime and get the win and clinch their trip to Vegas and Super Bowl 58. So many memorable moments in that game. The Jawan Jennings one-handed catch, Purdy's pass deflected off the face mask of Kendall Valdir and into the hands of Brandon Ayuk for the touchdown, which cut the Lions' lead to 24-17. Deebo Samuel actually playing like the clutch Deebo we remember, with 8 receptions for 89 yards. Brock Purdy's mobility in the pocket. So many great moments. And of course, we got the rematch on Monday night. Battle for the number 1 seed. Oh, wait. No, we don't have a battle for the number 1 seed. We have the Niners at 6-9. Nice. Already eliminated from playoff contention before kicking off in Miami last week. And the Lions at 13-2, having an incredible season. Jared Goff was 4th on the list for MVP voting with 33 touchdown passes he's thrown for 4,095 yards. And they have an incredible backfield with Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery. Gibbs has 12 rushing touchdowns, 3 receiving touchdowns, and 1,156 rushing yards. Montgomery has 12 rushing TDs and 775 rushing yards. They added Ja'Jarius Smith on their defense, which was already dominant. Aiden Hutchinson was having an incredible year as well, but he got injured in their game against Dallas, but they did not let his injury impact them at all. They're 13-2 right now. And it's actually funny. The Vikings are now a game ahead of them in the NFC North for the division. Of course, both teams have already clinched a playoff spot, but they're still battling for who's going to win that division, as the Vikings beat the Packers 27-25 in a really good-ass game today. And Sam Darnold, man, has had a hell of a year. Of course, Sam Darnold was Brock Purdy's backup just last season. And Brian Baldinger went on 95.7 The Game back on December 17th and said that he would have straight up flipped Brock Purdy for Sam Darnold at that moment. Sam Darnold this year has a passer rating of 106 with 4,153 passing yards, 35 touchdowns, and 12 interceptions. Brock Purdy, on the other hand, has a passer rating of 94 with 3,487 passing yards, 17 touchdowns, and 10 interceptions. So, yes, Sam Darnold has had the better season as Brock Purdy, but Brock Purdy still has a Super Bowl appearance on his resume. And the thing that I am most concerned about in these last two meaningless games in the 49ers season is the fact that Brock Purdy should not be playing out there. Brock Purdy is going to get a contract extension, is possibly going to be your $60 million quarterback, and he's going to be playing in two meaningless games. And the same thing goes with, like, I don't want Fred Warner to play either. I believe Fred Warner is going to play. Nick Bosa is going to play. Not supportive of that at all in any way. Let's see. And not only that, Aaron Banks and Spencer Burfield are out. Colton McKivitz is questionable. So let's see. Hold up a second. Yeah, you're going to have Austin Pleasance and Charlie Heck, who were signed just this week on that O-line. So the O-line is going to be incredibly weak. And if somehow, God forbid, Brock Purdy gets an ACL injury playing, and obviously he's not going to play in all four quarters, in all four quarters of either game, will probably likely just play in a couple drives. But if, God forbid, he gets an ACL injury, you either not have him returning for all of 2025, or you have him missing the first 5 weeks or something of the 2025 season. Now, if he gets a less serious injury, and God forbid that too, and he is just questionable for week 1, that's a major concern too, because you're trying to just have this year, just like 2020, be a scratch and just be right in the thick of things next year in 2025. And if you don't have a fully healthy Brock Purdy, well, the chances of that happening go down a lot. So I do not want Brock Purdy playing in either of these games at all. And that is coming from someone who's actually going to the Week 18 game here in Arizona and would love to see Brock Purdy and George Kittle play for a little bit. But I want to see a fully healthy team going into 2025. And obviously, any football game is a risk, but I think Larry Krueger put it best: risk versus reward. You're not gaining anything from how well Brock Purdy plays in these next couple games. I mean, I've heard people talk, it might impact how much, if they're going to sign him for $60 million, or if they're just going to offer him $45 million or whatnot based on what he plays. John Lynch has already made it clear that Brock Purdy is their guy. So there's nothing that Brock could possibly do in these next few games that would make any impact on that one way or the other. And yeah, that game last week in Miami as meaningless as it was, that interception that Brock threw at the end with Calais Campbell in his face was just a come on moment. Now it's a game where, towards the end I was like, okay, well, I don't care if they win this game or not, but it might be better if they just lose it at this point, because it'll keep them within the first 10 picks. I think they're at I think if the season was completely over, they would have the 10th pick, I believe. So obviously them losing kept them in the top 10 range for draft picks next season. But when Brock threw that pick, you're just like, fuck, man. That does not look good at all. But it's nowhere near as bad as the pick in a game that actually was meaningful against the Rams, when they only needed to get a field goal because they were down 9-6. Like, they just needed a field goal to tie it there, and Brock just did not make a good decision there at all. But as far as Brock's overall pocket awareness goes, it's not quite as good as last year, but it's still pretty damn good. You saw him use his legs a lot more this season compared to last season, which obviously isn't because because his pocket isn't as clean as he wants it to be, but you've seen him be more mobile this year. And of course, in this game last season, you had him going away from the sacks, doing his best Steve Young impression, which I even posted a video after the NFC Championship game, comparing his Steve Young getting away from a sack to Brock Purdy getting away from a sack. I recommend you check that out on my channel. But it's definitely been a step down, and I would definitely say that I'm not confident paying Brock Purdy $60 million. I would prefer to pay him $50 million to $45 to $50 million. That's what I think his worth is. But when you look at all the other quarterbacks and what they make, you have Dak Prescott at $60 million, Joe Burrow at $55 million, Jordan Love at $55 million, Trevor Lawrence also at $55 million, Tua Tagovailoa $53 million, Jared Goff $53 million, Justin Herbert $52 million, Lamar Jackson $52 million, Jalen Hurts $51 million, and Kyler Murray and Deshaun Watson both at $46 million. So out of those quarterbacks, Joe Burrow is, besides, well, obviously Brock's not on that list. He's still one of the lowest paid players in the entire league. But out of the list of the quarterbacks I just mentioned, Joe Burrow is the only quarterback and Joe Burrow's making $55 million to actually play in a Super Bowl. Excuse me. So if I'm Kyle Strongen, Brock Purdy's agent, I'm trying to get paid the highest that I possibly can, which probably would be 55 to 60 million. But what I would also be saying about him, I'll be saying, hey, do not risk him being injured in these last couple games. That's also what I would say if I was Brock Purdy's agent. Let's see. We're gonna check out some scores, some NFL scores. Well, we'll just do this entire Week 17, which started on Christmas with the Chiefs beating the Steelers 29-10. The Ravens destroying the Houston Texans 31-2. What's kind of cool is both those games were streamed on Netflix for the first time. Ian Eagle broadcasted the Chiefs-Steelers game. His son, Noah Eagle, who's a damn good young broadcaster, who's my age, as a matter of fact, called the Ravens and the Texans game. He also, of course, called the Olympics. He called Team USA basketball in the Olympics. Had that great call with Steph Curry with the night shot. And it was cool having both those games be on Netflix. I watched the Mike Tyson fight where Netflix buffered like a bitch, and that did not happen during the NFL game. So Netflix actually did a good job streaming those. As unlike when the Mike Tyson fight was on and just everyone from all over the world was watching it, so it just kept buffering like crazy. And then Thursday night game was the Seahawks over the Bears 6-3. Jim Harbaugh, who's a part of this, going to be part of this big part of this stream later on, and the Chargers beat the Patriots 40-7. This was the Saturday part of the Saturday games. Also yesterday we had the Bengals over the Broncos 30-24 at overtime. The Rams over the Cardinals 13-9. And then today, we had the Eagles destroying the Cowboys 41-7. Let's see how Saquon Barkley actually did not have a any rushing touchdowns. He had 31 carries, 167 yards. I have a feeling that Saquon will win MVP this year. Of course, the Eagles are also, just like the Lions, 13-3. The Buccaneers over the Panthers, 48-14. The Bills over the Jets, 40-14. And the Giants get their third win of the year, beating the Colts 45-33. And I believe they dropped from the second overall pick to the 6th overall pick or something like that. I forget what it was exactly, but apparently they did worse damage by winning that game. But that was a good win for them at the end of the year. Raiders over the Saints, 25-10. Jaguars over the Titans, 20-13. Dolphins over the Browns, 20-3. The Vikings over the Packers, 27-25. Sam Darnold threw for 3 touchdowns, threw for 377 yards. Justin Jefferson, 8 receptions, 92 yards. And the Vikings have had a hell of a year. This whole NFC North is just incredible. Probably good chance you'll see the Lions, the Vikings, and the Packers all in the playoffs for the NFC North. And you had the Commanders over the Falcons, 30-24. And Michael Penix Jr. threw for 223 yards and a touchdown. I believe that's his second game playing. Jaden Daniels, 227 yards, 3 touchdowns for the Washington Commanders. And the only game of Week 17 is tomorrow night at Levi's. Niners and the Detroit Lions. Let's see. Oh, shout out to Where You're Hiding. Yeah, you beat them boys. Yes, you did. As a matter of fact, shout out Where You're Hiding, big Eagles fan. I have a feeling your team's gonna be facing the Lions in the NFC Championship game this year. Shout out to Where You Hiding. Appreciate you watching. Appreciate all my people watching on Twitter/X and my one Twitch viewer as well. And if you guys just give me 1 second, I'm gonna get a guest on here in a little bit to talk about what's in the title of this video, the 10-year anniversary of Jim Harbaugh being fired by the Niners. So I'm just gonna share the link to my guest real quick, and before we get him on, we're gonna address some other things as well. Just give me a second. Absolutely, 100%. I still agree with you. Where you hiding? So, shout out to the Skills Report. Skills, appreciate you joining. He says Niners may not have to worry about Monday Night Football or Thursday Night Football in 2025 after this stretch season. If so, not as often as in 2024. Yes. Now, of course, the Niners also had a very bad rest disadvantage. I believe they were minus 21 in rest disadvantage, which, of course, was the result of being the defending NFC champs. And so the Niners not being any good this year, Next season, they'll definitely will have less primetime games. They probably have more Sunday night football games than they would Monday night or Thursday night games, but they'll definitely at least have one Monday night game and probably two Sunday night games. And I could likely see them getting a Thursday night game as well, because they are they're one of the most popular teams in the NFL, so they are going to have some primetime games. I mean, heck, even if they have 3 straight losing seasons, they'll still have some primetime games. But yes, they'll have more of a rest advantage next season, which will be what will matter. So let me share this link real quickly. Sorry, I'm trying to. Yeah, no, I could see them having the most Sunday night games next season. Let's see, what division do they play? So it's every 4 years. And with the NFL adding the stupid 17th week or 18th week, the 17th game, they play an extra AFC opponent usually that's not in the same division as the normal one that they play. So let's see, with it being 2025, just got to go back to the 4 years. So 2021, the division they played was the AFC or the AFC North was what they played. Yeah, they played the Colts, the Jaguars, Titans, Texans. So those will be the AFC opponents next season. I'm sorry, I've said AFC. I meant AFC South. This is what I meant. I think I said AFC North, but I meant AFC South. Sorry about that. I have to share the link to my guest. Yeah, we got a lot of people watching on Twitter/X. I don't know if it's some of Elon's trolls, but dang. And yeah, the AFC East was this year. Yeah, AFC North was last year. Yes, you're correct. And yeah, AFC South was 4 years ago, which means that in 2025 it'll be the AFC. It'll be the AFC South again, but it'll also probably be another random opponent as well. Shout out to Ernie. Thank you for joining the chat. Appreciate you, man. Thank you for joining the Gold with Danny Golding here on YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter. And yeah, that's funny. Yeah, the Bills are East and not North. A lot of teams are out of place. It's not like what it was in the 90s with the Niners being with the Falcons being in the NFC West, the Falcons and Saints being in the NFC West with the Niners, or back in like the early 2000s too. I think it was around that same time also with the Arizona Cardinals being in the NFC East. So it's not quite like that, but there's still a lot of teams that are just misplaced, out of place in division. But I wanted to shift some gears a little bit and talk about the Warriors' 109-105 win last night against the Devin Booker-less Phoenix Suns, but good win against a good team regardless. Steph with 22 points. Jonathan Kuminga with 34 points. Both Trace Jackson-Davis and Draymond with 16 points. Dennis Schroeder with 11 points. And got some stuff to play for that. So we had Curry's big flip at the end of the first half that even he was surprised about.
Final 3 seconds. Final 3 seconds. Step between the whole roster and threw it in. Are you kidding me? That should count for more than 2 points.
Look at him shrugging. I'm an alien. What did I just do?
He went behind the back. He went through the Phoenix roster, and he had a right-hand flip that went in.
You just have Steph not even knowing like what he had just done. Yeah, that play was beautiful indeed. And just in the third quarter, Draymond saves a Buddy Hield turnover, then airballs a shot, and then reacts pissed the fuck off at Buddy Hield. Take a look at this.
That is awesome. Good news. Buddy Hield got to be careful there. Draymond saved that turnover. He's got to beat the shot clock buzzer. And Warriors turn it over with the 24-second violation there on the air ball.
You're just trying to think about your shot selection. Draymond had to shoot that with the shot clock running down.
But you saw Draymond's ferocity there. Hey,
Wake the fuck up!
enough of the sloppy passes. We got to win this game.
Everybody has to be accountable.
I have Draymond to Buddy Hield saying, wake the fuck up or sit the fuck down. Straight up. Hey, say what you want about Draymond. Like, he's not afraid to say what's on his mind. I mean, that's one thing I'll say. He responded. He was asked about it in his press conferences, what he said about it.
Mike's caught you kind of lightning into Buddy Hield tonight. We heard about Steph kind of, having the player meeting the other day. How much right now is it on you two? Are you just trying to light a fire under this team a little bit?
For sure. As a leader, you have to try different methods. Sometimes you go to a guy, sometimes you don't. Buddy, I've played with Buddy now for 30 games. Trying to learn what makes him tick, you got to try different methods. Like I said, some guys you go to, Jonathan Kuminga, I go to, and I say, hey, this is what I need you to do. Look at this way, and he'll go do it. If I yell at him, I don't think he's going to do it. He ain't going to listen. He's going to get out of here, right? Steph, sometimes I go to him, sometimes I yell at him. He reacts to both. Like, as a leader, one thing I learned from Coach Izzo about leadership, you have to lead guys. If you think you're going to lead a team, you're an idiot. You have to lead guys that make up a team. But leading someone doesn't look the same as leading the next guy. And you got to figure out what makes guys tick, what gets a guy going. And so I'm still figuring that out, and to go at Buddy the way I did, we needed that in that moment. We're flat, we just turn the ball over, lock in. And that's no shot at Buddy. Dennis was at me the other day. He's been here for 2 weeks, and he was at me the other day. Great, it is what it is. Slow-mo called me out the other day. Dre, we getting punked, that's on you. Got you, no problem, right? Mike's catch everything today, but I don't care. Because anything I'll say it right into the mic. I don't give a damn. So it was needed. And we need Buddy Hield to play great. We need Buddy Hield to make shots. And we have all the confidence in the world that Buddy will make shots. But we got a post feed and you got a 6-foot guy on you, get the ball there. It's simple. We're 16 and 15. We don't love this. So do we just keep doing the same thing and sit back on our hands like, oh, it's going to change at some point, or do you make a change? I know what it looks like to win. I know what it takes to win. So as a leader, it's on you to figure out what it takes to help this team win. And if that's mixing it up with a guy every now and then, if that's yelling, then you do that. But don't be the guy that can't be yelled at, and I'll never be that guy. You know, a teammate yell at me, great. I may say something back. Oh well, guess what? Buddy said something back to me. We're not dictators. It's just what you say doesn't go, and everyone has to listen. No, he said something back. I said something back. He said something back. I said something back. Great, and we moved on, and that's how it's got to be. It's not always going to be peaches and cream. Whoever thinks that are idiots. Lost 3 in a row. And we have a turnover in a critical part of the game where we need to get a good shot. Let's get that shot.
All right. So now what I'll say for Draymond is last season, after all the shit that happened last year, the Rudy Gobert chokehold, the thing with Nurkic at that Suns game that I was at, and him getting suspended for both of that. So it was just last season. It was just not a good year for Draymond. With all that happened. And this season, Draymond has 16 technical fouls, which isn't a good look. But he doesn't freak out the way he does normally against refs. And I'm kind of on what Skills said. You can lead them without embarrassing them. Same crap you do. Yeah, that is true. He's done that. I mean, obviously, punching Jordan Poole is one thing, but I forget who. I think it was who was that actually that a few years ago that he yelled at. But yeah, shout out to Otis. Appreciate you as always, and shout out to CPG. Appreciate you guys watching, and yeah, there's a lot of mics on the court pick up everything, but I don't expect it to go that in the TV broadcast like the way. It was Riot Wiseman. Thank you. Yes, I do remember that. Yeah. That's what I thought. Yeah, I was blanking on Wiseman's name, which is kind of sad because we had so much hope for him when he was drafted. And shout out to AJ Cruz as well. So just real quick before I get my guest, who I see is in the screen room, I just wanted to acknowledge the passing. I wanted to acknowledge the passing real quickly of the 39th president, Jimmy Carter, who died today at the age of 100. Back on October 1st, he became the first U.S. president to live to 100. He was in office January 20th, 1977, after being elected in 1976. He served one term from 1977 to January 20th, 1981. He created both the Department of Education in 1980, which was originally thought up by Andrew Jackson in 1867, but wasn't fully established until Jimmy Carter in 1980, and also created the U.S. Department of Energy. He first met his wife, Evelyn Kenney, in 1945 at the Naval Academy in Annapolis, Maryland, where they started dating and ended up getting married a year later in Plains. They were married for 76 years until Roseanne Carter passed away last year in November of 2023. Jimmy and Roseanne Carter started the Carter Center in 1982, which goal was to advance human rights, eliminate human suffering. And I also read something cool where in 1984, Jimmy was speaking at a local church in New York and passed a Habitat for Humanity, and eventually started to volunteer for them. And after that, after his presidency, and ended up volunteering with Habitat for Humanity up until he was in his 90s, I believe. And just as of 2 years ago, the Carters have personally worked alongside 103,000 volunteers in 14 different countries to repair, renovate, and build over 4,331 homes. Now that's 38 years of volunteer work and partnership for Habitat for Humanity by the Carters. So legend indeed. And so I would like to bring my guest on, Sean, because yesterday was the 10-year anniversary of the 49ers firing Jim Harbaugh in 2014 after the 8-8 year. But what I want to actually get into is an article that was published on October 5th, 2014 on SI.com from Jay Glazer that says, report is Jim Harbaugh won't return to the 49ers in 2015. And it's just, Fox Sports' Jay Glazer said Sunday that he doesn't see any way the 49ers head coach Jim Harbaugh returns to San Francisco next year, even if the Niners win the Super Bowl this season. Now, I don't know exactly what their record was on October 5th, but they obviously won 8-8 and did not make the playoffs. That was Jim Harbaugh's only year not making the playoffs. He did not have a losing season. But it also shows a tweet from Jed York back on October 5th that says, Jim is my coach. We're trying to win a Super Bowl, not a personality or popularity contest. Any more questions? Now, the ironic thing about that is after Jim Harbaugh gets fired, he's like, oh, we just had philosophical differences. Trent had physiological differences with Jim Harbaugh. Well, what that basically means is they were not able to get along. Yeah, I know. I just that's just one of those words I cannot pronounce. In my head, I hear it perfectly, but it's one that I can't pronounce. But the point is that Jed tweet on October 5th, the same day that Jay Glazer has this article, completely contradicted his comments later on. Let's see. Sean, what's going on, dude?
First of all, I would like to say good evening to everybody. I hope everybody has had a amazing holiday break so far. New Year's is coming up within just a couple of days from now. And I also sort of want to give a bit of, a shout out to the longest living president who just passed away today at 100 years old. That is a phenomenal life of so many accomplishments, even if he was, not really the greatest president ever. I mean, he's definitely going to be seen in retrospect a very polarizing president. But as a human being and as a humanitarian, Jimmy Carter is absolutely the greatest I think we'll ever see in our lifetime. And it's amazing that he lived so long, like he outlived some of the most well-known figures in American history. And he even outlived Nixon's most infamous cabinet member, Henry Kissinger, which was obviously the greatest accomplishment in his whole life. But also Jimmy Carter era was also sort of, I should try to transition this into football talk, but during the time of President Carter, the Niners were sort of in a very limbo state at that time. Between 1977 and 1981, that team was going through like a major transition period. Yeah. In fact, it was during the Carter era, 1977, by the way, the very year when he was inaugurated, when the 49ers founding family, the Morabito's, decided to put the team up for sale. And we all know who bought the team. Eddie D. Eddie bought the team in 1977 during Carter, and the team sort of went on a back and forth crusade until 1981. And by then, Carter was gone, and Reagan had already replaced him after squashing him in the 1980 election.
Yeah, they were there for a year after Carter's last day in office, because of course it was at the beginning of 82 when they won their first Super Bowl. So it was about a year after he left office.
Yeah, it was one whole year after Carter was gone. But the foundation that was slowly being built, and I think it was around this time Montana was drafted during Carter. So the 49ers, as we knew them, at least the OGs, like the guys who grew up in the 80s and such that watched the 4 Super Bowls under Montana, it all started during Carter. And it's really where it really took shape. Like many of the key players like Dwight Clark, Freddie Solomon, Ronnie Lott, Roger Craig, Montana, etc. They were all drafted during Jimmy Carter. All of the key cornerstones of the franchise were all drafted in that time. It's just that they weren't able to truly unlock their true potential until much years later, because you know how long it takes to develop these teams. It's not a one and done situation. It takes a couple of years to see if they go anywhere or not. And fortunately, it worked out for us. But anyway, again, getting away from Carter. Again, rest in peace to him. I hope he's resting easy with his wife up there in the afterlife. So yeah, it's been 10 years since we lost the other Jimmy, that was Harbaugh. To this day, I still think it's one of the gravest mistakes that this organization has ever made, especially after the disastrous season the 49ers have had this year. I mean, let's not get ahead of ourselves here. 2024 was a complete and utter failure on, in every sense of the word. It was a complete disaster. You had injuries going around, which was sort of like what happened a bit in not just 2020, but also sort of in 2014 as well, when Harbaugh was fired. And I also recalled, because here's the thing, I'll actually tell the audience, including you, a little story, okay, about my experiences of watching the 2014 Niners, okay? I was just a freshman in high school. I was coming off of middle school, and during that time, the Niners had gone through basically a short period of greatness again, sort of like how they were in the 80s and even in the early first half of the 90s. At this time, they had just came off of a third consecutive appearance of the NFC Championship game. And I was so certain that in 2014 that this team was going to make another playoff appearance. But I wasn't sure about how they were going to cope with Seattle, because Seattle at this point was at their peak. They had just won Super Bowl 48. Denver was the strongest team in the AFC. Tom Brady was coming back. And also in the NFC too, you had Green Bay. You had also Dallas coming out of nowhere too after a few years of being in the cellar. I mean, there were some up and coming teams during 2014, and I remember, again, I was in high school at that time. I was very young. I had started my original YouTube channel, 49er Wildcat, and I mean, I remember 2014 like it was yesterday. It was not a good year, not just for me, but for that team, for the fan base, for basically for the entire community. I mean, it was horrible. It was a complete nightmare. Though, fortunately, we did get some silver linings, though, which of course were the last Giants World Series in October of that year, along with the sudden rise of the Golden State Warriors.
Right. Now,
so
that's
it wasn't all that bad.
You brought that up because, yes, the Giants winning the World Series in that incredible 7-game series against the Royals, or Mad Bum's all-time performance. You go from that to the Niners just having so many bad games. But I was actually looking at the games that they played. Now, they had a 4-game losing streak. They had I think they also had a 4-game winning streak as well.
And here's the thing, Danny. By the way, it was
bipolar season.
It was the 2014 season. It was the 2014 season where I met you. It's where I met all these guys here in some shape or form.
I remember that. Yes.
It was not. Now listen. In retrospective, it was not a good first. I didn't make a good impression upon people. I mean, I was very immature at the time. I was doing very stupid things that I shouldn't have done, and I want to apologize for those mistakes that I've made during that time. I was very immature, and I didn't really know what I was thinking at that time. I was going through a rough period in high school too. I mean, it was not a good time for me. 2014 was one of the worst years of my life. To really put it this way, it was not a good year. But yeah, so I remember. Again, the season like it was yesterday. The season started, of course, in Dallas. The very first game, it was against the Dallas Cowboys. We blew out.
Good after that game,
we blew them out. I remember we blew them out. Kaepernick looked like his 2013 self. The whole team looked like they were energized, like they were hyped up for another deep playoff run. Like everybody already thought after that very first game, like when we blew out Dallas. And by the way, I don't know if you remember watching that game, but AT&T Stadium at that time was filled with 49er fans. Like there was a large sea of red invading the Cowboys turf in the very first regular season game 14. Like
that
was
that was probably the first time. Correct me if I'm wrong. That's probably the first time the Niners played in Dallas in the Harbaugh era.
Yeah, that's correct. In Dallas, yes, but the first time
Dallas,
they actually played against Dallas was in 2011 when they were Candlestick. But yeah, speaking of Candlestick, so this was also the very first stadium where they were playing at Levi's. I remember being very hyped up again at this time because they were in a brand new stadium, Levi's. It was down south from pretty far down south from San Francisco. It was in Santa Clara, literally right next to California's Great America. And also there was superior public transportation this time around when compared to what we had at Candlestick. I mean, there was a lot of reasons to get excited about that season in 14. It was a loaded team. It was most of the same squad from the previous years. It was the same coaching staff. It was the same, basically everything. And I remember we even signed Kaepernick to a 7-year, $100+ million deal by Trent Baalke. Like everybody was very hyped up about 2014.
Yeah,
but
in that Week 1 game in Dallas, Kaepernick threw for 201 yards, 2 touchdowns. Frank Gore had 16 carries, 66 yards.
It was also Carlos Hyde's first game. He scored a touchdown too. It was like he made it 2014.
Yeah, Anquan Bolden also had 8 receptions and 99 yards. Tony Romo threw a touchdown, threw 3 interceptions, but still had actually more passing yards than Kaepernick at 281.
Now, don't get me wrong. I still think Dak Prescott is overall a better quarterback than Tony Romo. But Tony Romo was, he was all right in his own right, and he's a pretty good commentator now in football. And speaking of which, we lost actually one of the most recognizable voices in the National Football League. Greg Gumbel had passed away. I think it was from cancer.
Yeah, that was
he
on
was
Friday
78 years old.
that happened. Yes,
Yeah.
that was surprising because I did not know he had cancer. He was also a big March Madness commentator as well. Yeah, that.
Oh yeah, he was like one of my favorite commentators to watch in the National Football League, and yeah, I'm gonna miss him. It's too bad. But just to get back to the 14 season, yeah, after that Cowboys game, I was very confident, maybe a little too confident. And then the following week came. It was against Chicago at Levi's. It was the opening night at Levi's, the very first game of the year. I mean, look, in my defense, nobody saw it coming. The Niners at first really played very well. But then it was like they had I think a 20-7 lead by the start of the fourth quarter. And then all of a sudden, the Niners secondary just started completely getting clobbered by Brandon Marshall and Jay Cutler, which is so dumb now looking back because Cutler is a terrible quarterback. One of the most overrated and literally shitty quarterbacks I have seen, and yet they got murdered by him. And also one of the most overpaid athletes in the history of sports as well. Niners didn't score a single point in that fourth quarter. They didn't even counter with anything. The offense just completely disappeared. And then the game started to resemble what happened between Arizona and Chicago too in 2006 when they blew that huge lead in the second half of the game with all those turnovers, but also with all the bad defense and such. I mean, yeah, you probably know where it's going. And then one of the first things I thought after that game was over was the Bears are who we thought they were. And that's when I knew that something was wrong. After that very first game against Chicago, I knew that something was very wrong. And then I was further proven right the following week when the 49ers lost to Arizona 23-14.
That was at that game, as a matter of fact. And I thought that's
pathetic effort.
So they started off 1-2 then, like they did this year, like they did in 2021, where they ended up going to the NFC Championship game. So it's like kind of a trend where you see them start off 1-2. Like that's happened. But I actually wanted to read the results of this 2014. I have it up right here. So after that Arizona game, they ended up winning 3 straight after that against the Eagles.
Yeah, all of a sudden,
Chiefs,
the weird thing was for that short period, everybody thought the 49ers are back. They're good again. I mean, I literally thought that, okay, they just got unlucky against Chicago and AZ. But then we started winning the games, but they were, to be fair, mostly close ones against especially Kansas City and Philadelphia. And you know what? It's kind of funny now looking back because that 2014 game turned out to be the last time we'd ever take on the Kansas City Chiefs and beat them. Because after that, we never beaten them again.
Beat them in 10 years.
Yeah, it's been nonstop L's to Patrick Mahomes.
Not beat them.
And this was,
of course, with Alex Smith, that quarterback. At the end, yep. It would have been the first time that they would have faced him they would have faced Alex Smith in the regular season. Because I do remember them facing him in the preseason prior to that, but that was the first time that they faced Alex Smith in the regular season.
I don't think Alex Smith was terrible. He was.
I don't think he was. I think he'll go down as one of probably maybe the top 10, the top 15 quarterbacks in franchise history. I would say. Listen. As a 49er, he sucked. Okay, he sucked. For most of his career, he did. Yeah. But I mean, the 2011 and 2012 before he got injured. I mean, those years were so good that he's going to be ranked up higher than he normally would have been if it wasn't for that. As soon as Harbaugh,
Alex Smith,
clicked, boom.
Listen, as I said multiple times before in multiple streams, the reason why Alex Smith failed in San Francisco was because the coaching staff failed him. It's that simple. Alex Smith couldn't do things by himself. He couldn't carry a franchise. He had to be carried by somebody. And it didn't take until Jim Harbaugh until he was finally able to do stuff. But getting back though, I mean, as I said though, once he went to Kansas City, Andy Reid immediately fixed him. It didn't take long for that to happen, and then he made consecutive playoff appearances. But getting back on topic though, I remember it was week 7, if you recall, Peyton Manning broke his record and he blew out the 49ers easily, 42-17. And to be honest, that was a loss that I kind of expected because Denver was really good that year in 2014. And unfortunately, that turned out to be the last year where Peyton Manning actually looked like Peyton Manning because in 2015, even though they won the Super Bowl, they got completely squashed.
Yeah, he looked more he looked more like painting Manning in 2015, even though they won the Super Bowl.
It was unbelievable. How the hell could you perform that poorly, yet you win. You actually end up winning the big one. I mean, it does help that they had Von Miller, that awesome defense, and the good running game too. But again, they got blown out by Peyton Manning. And again, that was a loss I expected. But then this is where the bullshit really begins. This is where I knew this season was going to go downhill very quickly. Week 9. It was November 2nd, 2014.
Yeah, and they had a bye week in between this game and the Broncos game.
This was the game that I knew something was very wrong with this team. If you recall, it was in Santa Clara. It was the second game against the Rams that year. And the 49ers, for the most part in this game, actually did better than the Rams. They outplayed them. But again, the offense was nowhere to be found. And then when they finally started getting going, they were literally right at the 1-yard line. It was literally at the goal line. And then right when Cap was trying to sneak it in for the touchdown, he fumbles. That's something that Jimmy G or not even Brock Purdy would do. Cap literally fumbled. He fumbled at the goal line. You don't do that. You don't do that. How do you fumble?
2014 was the year that Kaepernick regressed so much compared to just what he was the prior season to that. And I just remember thinking, man, he sucks after I would see him. But then I'm like, okay, this is still the quarterback that led us to a Super Bowl and is basically was his rookie year, and who has a hell of an arm. He's one of the first mobile quarterbacks that I've seen in my lifetime. I don't want to give up on him too late, and then he just has another bad game the next week. That's what it was. Week after week, when you wanted, still have confidence based on his resume.
Listen, I'm not going to use the injury card for Kaepernick. This is to respond to Otis here because, listen, a lot of these losses were his own fault in 2014. He performed absolutely poorly when compared to his 2012 and 2013 seasons when he made the championship games. But that loss to the Rams, I remember that was one of my earlier 49er Wildcat videos. I remember being absolutely fucking pissed, and I called for Greg Roman to be fired. And I was right.
A lot of people wanted Greg Roman fired. That, like, he got more, like, no one even blamed Harbaugh that much, but I guess he had clock management issues, but Greg Roman took a lot of the blame.
Roman should have been dismissed literally within the season itself. Why the hell did they not do that? We'll never know. In my opinion, this smells like a bulky job rather than, or maybe this was a Harbaugh thing. I don't know. Harbaugh is very stubborn when it comes to admitting his own failures or something. But it's not to say I think he was a terrible coach. It's just, it was just bad luck at the end of the day. But that loss to the Rams was inexcusable. And who knows what would have happened if they had not lost that game. But yeah, anyway, then all of a sudden we have another 3-game winning streak. New Orleans Saints game, that one was very close, and it was actually a reverse of the heartbreaker the previous year that cost the 49ers a number 1 seed in the playoffs. And then the following week, against the New York Giants, the Niners finally get their revenge for the 2011 NFC Championship game when they forced Eli Manning to throw a worse 5 interceptions. A good chunk of them were taken by Chris Borland, who unfortunately decided to retire after only 1 season. Who knows what kind of a career he would have had he decided to risk his head.
Card, actually, from that year.
I think had he played a full career, maybe he probably would have been a Pro Bowler, just judging by how he played. But anyway, so yeah, that one was ugly. But again, Niners defense showed up and did a great job in preventing the Giants from really going anywhere offensively. Then the following week, the Niners and Redskins fend off in a, mid-off. RG3 was no longer RG3 by that point. And in the end, the Niners, they just outdid them. I mean, the Redskins were a terrible team that year in 2014, so there was no excuse to lose to them. And I think they won it 17-13. I mean, it wasn't a pretty game, but hey, they won. So they're 7-4. Then you had week 13.
The turkey on the 50 game.
What happened there? That's what I'm going to say. What the fuck happened? This game was one of the biggest stinkers in the history of this franchise, at least in this era. How the hell do you go up against Seattle in your brand new stadium and not score a single touchdown? And Kaepernick, by the way, if you recall, played very poorly. The Niners only generated a total of 164 yards of offense and 1/3 quarter field goal. And they literally only averaged 3.2 yards per pass and only 3.6 yards per rush. And Cap threw 2 interceptions, and then Parrish Cox fumbled 2. In fact, this team played so poorly that Jed York actually went on Twitter to apologize to everybody for this awful game.
Yeah, I do remember that. Yeah, wow, that was when it gets serious, when Jed actually, tweets.
I mean, I appreciate the apology, but the way he followed through on that was really bad. It was inexcusable. And then this to me was the final nail in the coffin for this team. Week 14 against the Raiders.
Yeah, I remember knowing the season was over after that game. I remember watching it at the same bar, even though I was only 17. I remember actually watching it at the Niner bar that game and how
they lost to the fucking Oakland Raiders. And I remember, at this time, I was literally, again, my YouTube channel was slowly growing at this time. And I remember I was getting cyberbullied on by the fucking Raider fans. They were shit-talking me before and after the game. It was even worse after the game. People were telling me to kill myself. People were really giving me a hard time. The Raider fans, holy fuck, were they savages. Probably one of the worst fans I've ever dealt with, probably on the internet, honestly, of any NFL fan base. They were so bad that they actually made me appreciate the Philadelphia Eagle fans. But yeah, these people were such a fucking pain in the ass, and I had to disable my comment section. I remembered everything. It was horrible. I was getting ratioed in the just like system. Like, it was the absolute worst bit of torture. And I can blame this mainly on the Niners themselves. They absolutely got their asses completely raped in that Raider game. And I knew that this team was not only cooked, but I knew Jim was gone. I knew it. I didn't want to believe it, but I knew he was gone. But I didn't understand the consequences. And then the following week, Seattle beats the Niners mainly without that much of an effort, 17-7. I mean, yeah, it may not sound too bad on paper, but Seattle realized, what's the point of putting our effort on offense when our opponent's offense literally is not even trying anymore? I mean, they're out of the playoffs, so we might as well just flat out toy with them. And that's what they did. And then week 16, Kaepernick actually had a decent game, a pretty decent game. He ran for like 90-plus yards for the touchdown against the Chargers. But Phillip Rivers is Phillip Rivers. And we lost to them 38-35. And then the last game was against Arizona, and they got payback for the earlier, from the earlier part of the season. But it was too little too late. The team was out of the playoffs. It got as far as the 8th seed. They played very poorly against the division, 2-4. Against the conference, they did a little bit better. But the thing is that you got to win your division games. And if you don't win your division games, you're fucked. And that's exactly what happened. So here's the thing. This Niners team had the playoffs literally within their sight. All they had to do, even if they didn't win that Seattle game on Thanksgiving, let alone the Bears game, they only really had to win just 2 more games. And that was about it. All they had to do was beat the Chargers the week prior and also beat the Rams in week 9. And perhaps not choking the lead to Chicago. I mean, even though I said that wasn't really required, but you all know what I'm saying. But had they beaten just St. Louis and the Chargers that season, this team would have been in the playoffs. But would they have made it?
It would have been a tougher decision for Jed York and Trent Baalke to fire Jim Harbaugh after they.
No, here's the thing. Here's the problem. If he had made the playoffs that season, I think the 49er fans would have been fucking pissed if he had been fired. Let's say he made the playoffs, okay? Let's just say he gets the 10-6 record, okay? You have a very mediocre offense, a okay defense.
Or even 9-7 if they had just won one more game and went 9-7 even.
No. The 49ers, even if they had a 9-7 record, wouldn't have made the playoffs. They were already eliminated after the Seattle game. So even if they had beaten the Chargers and got a 9-7 record, it wouldn't have been enough to make the postseason. So they had to go 10-6 to at least make the playoffs. No. According to this, shit. So apparently they had to get an 11-5 record instead. Now, I don't know if any of you guys remembered, but in 2014, one of the big surprises that year was the Detroit Lions. They were really good that year.
I do remember that because one of my good friends that I started hanging out with in high school and when I was a junior, who still to this day is a huge Lions fan, actually.
That's good for him. I'm happy that he's now finally seen a high-quality team that's going to probably last years. I'm honestly, I have no ill will towards the Lions and their fans. They're sort of like the Chicago Cubs in a way. They're the lovable losers. But how long will they keep that lovable losers label, considering the path that they're going on? Because everybody knows that the moment that they win a Super Bowl, everyone's going to start to jump on the hate bandwagon. Because one Cowboys fan that I've seen, he's like a boomer or something, but he once said that before everything, like with Mahomes, nobody hated on the Chiefs. Everybody had respect for the Chiefs. They were the lovable losers. So, the Cubs.
The Warriors for sure as well.
But as soon as they started to breed a lot of success, everybody started to hate on them because people couldn't stand the fact that they were so successful. So, but yeah, the one line that he said that really sticks with me is success breeds contempt. You have to keep that in mind. That's why people hate the 49ers too. Success breeds contempt. That's the attitude people have towards the Niners. That's the attitude people have against Philadelphia, towards Kansas City, towards New England, towards Dallas, towards Green Bay, towards, any well-known. And yeah, Pittsburgh. Any successful franchise in the NFL is going to be hated on. It's a fact, and that's something we got to live with. We're going to have the most bandwagon fans. We're going to have the most haters. I mean, that's just really the way things are, honestly. And it's an unfortunate reality, but that's just the way things, are. But anyway, though, had they made the playoffs in 2014 with an 11-5 record or 10-6, let's say that happens. I honestly feel like York would have been more unwilling to fire, or maybe he would have been more conflicted because he would have known that the fans were going to kill him for that. I mean, okay, if you guys remember 2014, not just Danny, but everyone in the chat, we all remembered the teams of the playoffs in 2014, okay? You had Seattle, you had Green Bay, you had friggin' let me think about this. Who were in the playoffs in 2014 on the NFC side? Because I know, that's right.
Detroit, of course, was. Yeah, the Lions were that year.
Okay, Detroit was there. Dallas was there. And then you had Arizona was there. Carolina was there. By the way, Carolina is the worst playoff team in the history of the NFL. They toppled the I think they actually toppled the 2010 Seahawks. But yeah, you had some really good teams coming out. And honestly, though, I don't know if it would have been possible for the 49ers to make it to another NFC Championship game. Though, I mean, who knows? We'll never know. But the way I see things, this team definitely had the capability to make it to at least another NFC Championship game, like on paper. But would they have beaten Seattle? I fucking doubt it. I don't think so. No one was beating Legion of Boom in the NFC at that time. Nobody was. But it was not until around after 2015 or so, after the infamous Malcolm Butler interception, that people really started to figure out Seattle. And then everybody from those 2013 and 14 teams start to leave for either other franchises, retired, or perhaps were too injured beyond repair to ever be the same again. But again, we'll never know what this 2014 could have actually done had they made the playoffs. But yeah, as I remember, after the Arizona game, I was sort of done with Jim. But at the same time, I knew that it was a massive hole that he was going to leave behind. And unfortunately, we were in for a period of darkness that would last until the 2019 team, when not only when Jimmy showed up, Garoppolo, but also when you saw the rise of Fred Warner, Nick Bosa, George Kittle, then you saw Deebo Samuel coming out as a rookie. I mean, you had a lot of guys that were coming about. Oh, and Raheem Mostert too. You see, this was the firing of Jim Harbaugh, in retrospect now, can easily be seen as one of the worst moves that this team has ever made. Because if you look at what he was able to do in Michigan between 2015 and 2023, he had arguably a great run as a college coach there. He did even better than what he was able to do in Stanford. I mean, he had an impressive 86-25 record. He won a national championship there. He was able to finally get rid of Ohio State. I mean, you cannot really shit on Jim Harbaugh that much during that period. I mean, yeah, he choked a lot in each of the bowl games and I guess in the college playoffs. But at the end of the day, he won a national championship. He did. And nothing can really take away from that.
Yeah, so, he's having success with the Chargers this year at 10-6.
I want to actually talk about that. The thing is, he's been in a very unusual situation because this Chargers team on paper has actually been very mediocre. But what really impressed me about what he's been able to do this season was he sort of transformed Justin Herbert into a more game manager-like quarterback. Like the way Herbert's been playing this year, he reminded me a bit of Alex Smith in 2011. He's definitely not the super pocket passing rocket man that we came to know and love during 2020 and 21 when he was going 4,000 or 5,000 yards. He was not the same guy, but it's amazing. He threw for 21 touchdown passes. has the best QBR of his career so far, and has thrown only 3 picks this season. That's really good. That is absolutely like one of the best I've ever seen by a quarterback. Very efficient numbers. But is it going to go far in the playoffs? I don't think so. But I'd love to be proven wrong. But what he's been able to do to this Chargers team within just a year is just unbelievable. I don't think we'll see something like this again. Because the Chargers are historically mediocre franchise that hasn't really gotten anything done. But I hope he'll be finally able to break their curse.
Yeah, now what I thought was kind of the most disrespectful thing about them firing Jim 10 years ago is the fact that by hiring Jim Tomsula, the coach that was literally technically was the interim coach before Harbaugh got hired after Singletary was fired in 2010, it's like you basically going backwards, and there's no way that they couldn't have been planning to rebuild after doing that in a sense, because what you had basically in February, the whole week where Frank Gore goes to Indy, Patrick Willis retires. You had like all that happening within just a short period of time after Jim Tomsula gets hired. So the franchise is literally going backwards.
It almost felt like it was in a way, I almost felt like Tomsula was complicit in that coup d'etat against Jim Harbaugh. And that's something that I should mention, that the firing of Jim Harbaugh felt more like a coup d'etat than anything. It was a coup. And while Jed was successful in getting rid of him, what he was also successful in doing was setting this team back 5 years, if not 10. This team did not make the playoffs for like 5-6 years. Like, why? And also, I felt like Jim also knew that the writing was on the wall for Kaepernick after 2014. And that's why even before the 2014 season, he was actually already looking at a young Jimmy Garoppolo coming out of Illinois at that time. I feel like, or Eastern Illinois, yeah. It's the same school that Tony Romo went to. But I felt like Harbaugh knew that Cap didn't really have much longer left as a sustainable starter, and that's why he was already looking to get rid of him in the future. Like, he knew he was cooked. But nobody wanted to accept it at the time. The 49ers management didn't want to accept it. Balky was in a lot of denial over the fact that Jim was already looking for a replacement to Kaepernick. But the signs were there. He knew that Cap was not the answer, especially after 2014. He knew that defenses were figuring him out. And Greg Roman was also worsening his condition. There was just no long-term future for Kaepernick, and Harbaugh knew it. That's why he's not in the NFL right now. It's not because of his politics. That's definitely one of the reasons why. But his playing abilities really regressed significantly, if not drastically, after 2013. He did not really look like somebody who you wanted to put out on the field. He looked like somebody who you would bench, maybe as a backup or something.
And I still think that like he should have at least been a backup on some other team. Like I would think he would be good enough to do that. I mean, the fact that he still has the Super Bowl on his resume, but he regressed more than any quarterback I've ever seen from 2013 to 2014. I wanted to just what Otis said in the chat real quick about it being Jed's ego at that time, and thankfully Jed learned from the Harbaugh situation. I would agree with that last part, but I would say it was more it was Jed's ego, but it was just the fact that he couldn't get along with Jim because Jim was a tough guy to deal with. But in the tweet that he makes on October 5th, 2014, where he's like, "Jim's my coach. We're trying to win the Super Bowl, not a personality or popularity contest. Any more questions?" It's almost like he was trying to convince himself that rather than.
By the way, I'm not joking about this. In March 2014, a month before the draft, literally, Garoppolo literally was working out with Jim Harbaugh. So Jim wanted him. Jim wanted to draft him. But Balky said no. And no, it wouldn't have been 2015. He would have been starter almost immediately in 2014 had Harbaugh had his way. He knew that Kaepernick had already ran out of batteries. Like, there was nothing left.
Well, I mean,
Now,
Kaepernick would have had to still start off the year. I mean, Garoppolo would have gone in at that time when Cap started struggling.
I mean, perhaps, maybe they would have had Jimmy sit on the bench for a year, maybe, just to figure out his surroundings, figure out the playbook and everything. But I definitely believe he would have been a starter either way. So it's kind of funny that years later, the 49ers would end up finally getting Jimmy Garoppolo to play for them. Though by then, he was already a little older by then, though more mature. He definitely learned a lot from Tom Brady, which definitely did help him in his career when he came to the Niners in 2017. But yeah, I personally don't feel like what can I say? It's very weird because in the end, by especially trading for Jimmy G, it's almost as if there was an admission by the organization that, you know what, maybe Jimbo was right all along about Jimmy. He was right all along about Cap not being good anymore. I mean, remember when the Niners drafted CJ Beathard? What the hell were they thinking with that pick? Why? Just why?
I remember one time there's Donald Trump one time said that he thought that he could be the next Tom Brady. I saw that somewhere.
Jinx, he got Jinx. Oh yeah, he got Jinx by him. And by the way, you know what's funny? Donald Trump is actually a fan of Brock Purdy, and
yeah, I saw that. Well, I mean, Bosa's probably just because Bosa's a fan. I did see that video, indeed. Now onto the Jimmy G thing. If Jimmy G had gotten drafted in 2014, and he would have, either played that year or started in 2015, having a younger Jimmy G, probably before he was injury prone, also you would have seen a better version. You would have seen more of the version you saw of him in 2017, I think. And if he did not get injured in Kansas City in 2018, if he would have just gone out of bounds and not tried to extend that play, there's a good chance that we see a better version of Jimmy G the rest of that 18 season, and then in that 19 season, you wouldn't have seen him only throw the ball 8 times in the NFC Championship game. You would have seen Kyle actually trust him more.
Jimmy would be listen. If Jimmy had not blown up his knee in that game, I think he'd still be on the Niners right now, and I would be wearing a Garoppolo jersey right now instead of a Purdy jersey, without doubt. I have no absolute question of doubt. Had Jimmy never been hurt that year, he would still be on the Niners right now, and there would have been no need for us to draft Brock Purdy, and there would have been no need for us to waste our draft picks on.
They could have still drafted him.
Yeah, he was wide open he was there for the taking, but history could have been very different had he never popped his ACL against Kansas City, and also, but more importantly, history could have been very different had Harbaugh never been fired. Because imagine again if he was allowed. I mean, here's the thing: what Jed should have done was swallow his pride, listen to Jim, fire Trent Baalke, and then I don't know, just try to go from there. As I told people, for your football team to be successful under Jim Harbaugh, you have to give him control of the roster. In a way, he's sort of a general manager in himself. And what we're seeing this year with the Chargers proves my point. You give him control, you're going to see a lot of winning. And he's winning, as I expected him. Now, is he going to win big games like in the playoffs? I absolutely don't know yet, and it's going to be very difficult for him to do so against teams like Buffalo, Kansas City, and then you have some up-and-coming teams too. I mean, Pittsburgh is now good again all of a sudden. I don't know how that was possible, but they are. And they got to go up against Baltimore. That's not easy. And then you have to go up against Houston, who are also up-and-coming. I mean, there's a lot of competition in the AFC. It's very difficult for the Chargers to really get over that hump or climb that mountain. I mean, the AFC is a mountain when compared to the NFC. The NFC is a hill, like a little hill.
Yeah, being in the same division as Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs definitely doesn't help them in general if they want to, get a home playoff game, get a first round bye. I mean, that's likely never going to happen.
I mean, here's the thing though. This year, Jim actually came pretty close to beating Mahomes this year. He lost to Kansas City last week by only 2 points, and in September they lost by only 1 touchdown. It was 17-10. So They do have what it takes to beat them. But can they actually beat them? I don't know. Time will tell in the next few years if they're able to crack Patrick Mahomes.
I have a feeling that the Bills or the Ravens might knock off the Chiefs in the AFC this year. I have a feeling. I'm not.
I mean, are you gonna?
But I have a feeling.
Kansas City is literally the best team in the entire National Football League right now. Like, I don't know how. I mean, Patrick Mahomes this year is not even having his best season. He's having actually the worst season in his career. Yet it didn't matter. His team is like 15-1. Are you kidding me? I mean, here's the thing. What people need to also understand is this team doesn't really have a good offense, but what they did focus on was the defense. And that turned out to be the key element of this Chiefs team this year. And for Chargers, again, like Harbaugh did exactly what he did in San Francisco years ago. He focused on the defense. But eventually, though, Jim is going to have to deal with actually improving the offense next season in 25. The fact that he even made the playoffs this year in just 1 year with this team, just like he did 13 years ago, is a miracle all in itself. But we don't know the maximum extent of the Chargers' potential under Jim. But I want to believe they're going somewhere one day. And I believe they will. But can they actually topple Kansas City? That remains to be seen. But they still have some missing pieces left before such a thing can happen.
Now I wanted to get into a little bit of this meaningless Monday night game tomorrow night. What I was saying earlier in my stream is I do not agree with the fact that Brock Purdy is even starting this. I get why, but at the same time, like, why even risk him possibly getting an ACL injury and then missing?
Pad the stats. Pad the stats. You might as well stat pad. I mean, why not? I mean, the season's over. Just pad your stats. But also intentionally lose the games on purpose to get a higher draft pick. Why not?
Well, I mean, they'll never. I mean, no team's ever going to openly do that, of course. But I mean,
tanking. No, I think the NFL is actually now taking more action against tanking, like intentional tanking now. After what Philadelphia did in 2020, that shit was obviously obvious. Like, they did that on purpose. I remember they choked against Washington on purpose in that last game of the year just to get a high draft pick. I think that was done by the order of the GM or Lauria himself before he ended up firing Doug Peterson for Sirianni.
Yeah, and there's almost like no way they'll beat the Lions tomorrow night.
I wonder how Goff is going to do.
Yeah, if it wasn't for the fact that the Lions actually are still playing for I'm not sure they're seeding, but I think they're playing to actually win the division because right now the Vikings are a game ahead of them. Their Vikings are 14-2 with their win today, and the Lions are 13-2. So the Lions technically are playing for something, but heck, if I'm Dan and I heard a clip of him. Actually, I should have downloaded it and played it. I heard a clip of him just being like, "Hey, we're going on the West Coast. We're playing to win. You know, I don't care about the Sanders or nothing." And Dan Campbell, I mean, I love him today. He's an absolute fucking madman. I mean, he literally coaches like he's playing Madden. He'll go for it on almost every fourth down. And the Lions have 18 fourth down conversions this year.
I mean, if anything, I think he needs to do a little more experiments, if you ask me, this upcoming game. But in my opinion, if I were him in the playoffs, I would not want to overdo the fourth down gambles. I mean, there's a reason why people call Dave Campbell Dave Gamble.
Yeah.
I mean, it also sort of reminds you of what Ron Rivera did, and that's why people nicknamed him Riverboat Ron. But, if I were him, maybe I would do some experiments, but he has to be very careful. The playoffs do not tolerate a lot of mistakes. They don't. And also, I just think it's not a good idea for him to get too cocky. I mean, they got to fight for that 1 seed, and I think they should be able to get it. And, I feel like Detroit needs to. I'll be rooting for Detroit in the playoffs. For those of you who are wondering who I'm going to be cheering for.
Too. Yeah, I think the perfect Super Bowl would be a Bills Lions Super Bowl would be the perfect one.
Oh yeah, that would be a great one to watch because then we'd finally get a matchup that would actually mean something.
Yeah, and that Bills Lions game a few weeks ago was a very fun game to watch as well. That was the Lions' second loss of the year. Of course, the Chiefs also the Bills also handed the Chiefs their first loss as well this season.
I hope it's Lions Bills too because then we get a high scoring game. I really hope. But by the way, yeah, Jared Goff, by the way, is from the Bay Area. He's from here. He lived here. Yep. He went to school here for high school and college. I even remember going to one of his first.
Is he from Marin?
Yeah, he's from Marin. In fact, by the way, I remember it all in 2013. I actually attended his very first game as a rookie or as a freshman, I think. I remember going to the game against Northwestern, and my sister's school managed to beat California in a score of 44-30. Though Goff, did all right, all things considered. But in 2014, he really took off, went 5-7, and then in 2015, he met new highs, went 8-5. I mean, he was really good in college. I remember watching him; he was fun to watch. And then, he went to the Rams. I obviously rooted for him there, even though he was obviously the rival. I mean, I have no problems with Jared Goff on a personal level. I think he's a great guy. I think he's a good representative of the Bay Area, as Tom Brady is. And I hope he gets at least one Super Bowl in his career with Detroit. I mean, I feel like he's doing much better in Detroit than he's ever done in LA. I mean, even in that horrible season in 2021, he already looked better than he did when he was in LA. Goff is a really good player, but is he the best quarterback out there? It's debatable.
There's a guy here in the chat, Frank Weber, that says he saw Goff play PAL in Nevada.
Oh my goodness! How bad was it? Was it a blowout? Did Goff cook your team? Did you guys get beaten down that badly by Goff? A young Goff? That had to be something. Imagine your team, you're watching your team getting completely roasted and steamrolled by a potentially future Hall of Famer, and you just didn't know it at the time. Literally, when you see the guy getting drafted and when you see him perform as he does on TV, you're like, wait a minute, I watched that guy, I saw him right in front of me in the flesh just 5-10 years ago on TV. Literally in high school. Just imagine that. You're watching a future NFL player in high school.
I have a similar story to that, actually. So one of my friends that I met for my job last year, where I work in Arizona, when we were talking, and he's kind of just a casual NFL fan. We were talking about Brock Purdy 2 years ago, when his first few games that he started after Jimmy got hurt, and he's like, oh yeah, I played football with his younger brother, and he was a few years older than me. He was on the team as well.
But yeah, I heard Brock was actually was he good in high school?
Yeah, he was one of the top players in Arizona, and I was not familiar with him when I was in high school. He was a little bit younger than me, and he never actually played the school that I even looked it up. He never played the school that I went to.
Brock and I were roughly the same age.
The same grade. Yeah, you guys would have graduated the 2018 from high school. Yeah.
Me and Brock are here's the thing. We're only 2 months apart. I was born in February 2000. He was born in December 99. So I think he was class of 2018.
It was his birthday just 2 days ago. His birthday's on the 27th. So he celebrated his 24th birthday. He was born just 3 days before.
Oh, Frank answered the question. He said he was around to 11 to 12, but already acted like a grown-up and hung out with the coaches, not the other kids. Wow. That sounds like he had a really good work ethic. It sounded like he was a coach's player and not really like the other kids who would just go out and party or play their video games at home. This dude sounded like he was very committed.
I remember Greg Papa on his radio show was talking about how he would rip Jared Goff like his first few years with the Rams, and then his dad actually would listen to the show, and he one time texted him, like, "Stop ripping my son."
Goff is, listen, you know what's funny is that if you compare Goff's run in 2023 versus 2018 when he went to the Super Bowl that year and where they got beaten down by the Patriots.
And only scored 3 points in the Super Bowl, one of the worst Super Bowls we've seen.
No. Why are you saying one of the worst? That was the worst Super Bowl of all time. That was the worst. Though I would say it comes at a pretty close second. Or, to me, the 3 worst Super Bowls of all time were 1989, Niners and Broncos. 49ers just completely wiped the floor with Denver. Like, they didn't stand a chance. No one was beating that 49 team in 89. Everybody knew it. Even the best teams that were not the Niners that year knew that, yeah, we're not going to get past San Francisco that year. Everybody already knew they were winning. They were going to two-peat. Nobody – also, another bad Super Bowl was Super Bowl 48. That one was when Seattle completely cooked the Denver Broncos 48 to 47 to 8 or something. I don't know, 46 to 8. I don't know.
I was hoping that Peyton Manning and the Broncos would get a Super Bowl ring that
year. That was like a pathetic performance. It's almost as if they didn't even try. They didn't even like score 10 points. That was like one of the worst efforts I've seen by a conference champion in a Super Bowl. Like, come on, you're in the Super Bowl. You're not in this isn't regular season. But they literally played like they were in regular season, and that's why they lost. Their attitude was just not right for the big game. And then, yeah, you had Pats and Rams in 2018. Now, funny thing was that it was supposed to be a rematch of Super Bowl 36, which is one of the good Super Bowls of all time. Not one of the greatest, but one of the good ones. Yeah. And that one was 20-17. That was a great game. And it was the rise of Tom Brady too, and arguably the end of the greatest show on turf. But this game, though, Super Bowl 53, was a massive step backward. It was nothing like that game. I hated that game. I really regret watching it. They even destroyed their opportunity. I mean, another reason why I hated that Super Bowl was just how they handled the whole passing of Steven Hillenburg that year, the SpongeBob creator. They had an opportunity to pay tribute to him by performing Sweet Victory at the halftime show, but they didn't do that. Instead, they gave us Travis Scott.
Yeah, that's...
What the hell is wrong with them? What the hell is wrong with them? Do they have no shame? And they had the audacity to have Squidward call Travis Scott a talented musician, a musical genius. Like, what the fuck? That is an insult.
Like, I'll say, I do like Travis Scott, but one of the things that I do not like on him at all is how do you remember that incident that happened at his concert?
He murdered. Ago. Yeah, he had some kids murdered.
I mean, basically what happened is he didn't do anything to actually. He just posted it when the ambulance showed up. He just posted it on his Instagram story. Could not have cared less about it.
And then I remember that apology video he made. Like people turned it into a meme. Like because it was the fakest, most pathetic effort at an apology ever. It was funny. But it just showed he was a piece of shit. But yeah, it's a meme. It was black and white. He was like face palming, but it was obviously fake. He had to say something after that whole schism. He couldn't just say nothing.
Yeah, and I think was that caused by crowd surfing?
Yeah. No, it was just like stampeding or something. Like it was ridiculous.
Yeah, because I remember I went to a rave, the Decadence rave 2018 going into 2019, and I almost got caught in a mosh pit, but I got away from it pretty quickly. It made me think of
if people want to do mosh pits, go to a heavy metal concert. Don't do it at these rap concerts. Come on. If you're gonna die at a concert, it better be in metal. Now that is a badass way to go out.
Yeah.
But yeah, sorry about the cold, twisted edgy joke that I made, but yeah, the thing is yeah, that was a horrible game, but yeah, but getting all the way back though on topic to I mean, yeah, we were talking about Goff, we're talking about Lions, Listen, Detroit in 2023 performed better than Goff's Super Bowl team in 2018. Goff threw for 4 touchdown passes and 0 picks during the 23 playoffs. He did very well. He was absolutely a beast in the 23 playoffs. You cannot take that away from him. He played very well. He had a very good QBR rating. He didn't he got sacked a lot, yeah, but he didn't really turn the ball over a lot. He didn't he didn't throw any picks. He lost only one fumble. He got fumbled, but he didn't actually lose it.
Yeah,
so he had a really good playoff run.
I would say that the Matthew Stafford, Jared Goff trade may have been one of the best trades in NFL history due to the fact that it actually benefited both teams.
Yeah, Rams got over the hump. And the Lions finally are good again. They finally are a playoff team. But I honestly think that the Lions trade for Goff is going to generate greater success for them than the Rams will. The Rams, I feel like, are going to win the division, but they're not going to go that far in the playoffs.
Did you want Matthew Stafford on the Niners in 2021? Because I definitely did. When they were talking about trading for him, I was like, yeah, let's do that. I mean, Jimmy G had a good run, but we need a better quarterback, and Matthew Stafford would be that's what I was hoping for at that time. And then once the Rams traded for him, all of a sudden the Niners had the worst quarterback in the NFC West, it seemed like at that point.
Also, by the way, I should mention that another thing to say about this upcoming playoffs is I feel like, you know who really I think might be very scary right now in the NFC that people should watch out for? I know it may sound silly, but the Vikings. They look really good.
Oh, no, not at all. The Vikings, that would not shock me if they, maybe they end up beating the Eagles and facing the Lions in the NFC Championship game. I could see that possibly happening. As of right now, my prediction would be Lions-Eagles for the NFC Championship game. But, I mean, the way Sam Darnold is playing, and by the way, earlier on the stream, I referenced how Brian Baldinger went out 95-7 in the game this month and said that at that point he would have straight up flipped Brock Purdy for Sam Darnold so they wouldn't have to pay.
Remember when people got mad at him? But turned out he was kind of right now because Darnold had a great year. Though I don't know if this successful season of his is going to be regarded back as a fluke. I mean, for all I know, this could be Case Keenum 2.0, where
he has healthier weapons though too. That's another thing about it. Also,
speaking of which, do you remember that 2017 Vikings team, the Miracle Vikings team? They went to the NFC Championship game, won on a fluke play against the Saints. Case Keenum led that team, by the way. Unbelievable.
Oh, in 2017.
Mm-hmm. Remember?
Yeah, I do remember it a little bit. Yeah.
The 2017 Vikings were a very, very fun team to watch, but a lot of people don't really remember them except for that one big play in the playoffs against the Saints. I mean, everyone knows the Saints are chokers in the playoffs for the most part.
Yeah, and Otis is asking if, can Sam Darnold do it again next year, especially if he ends up signing with their team. At this point, there's absolutely no way that the Vikings don't offer him $50 million or something to come back next year.
JJ McCarthy is fucked. He's cooked. He's in trouble now that Darnold is playing very well. I mean, what was the point of them even drafting McCarthy now? They might as well just trade him. Might as well just trade him.
Let's see. Hold on. I'm trying to find this real quick. Yeah, there was trying to find the exact stat because today was one of the rare Sundays where I actually did have to work and I actually listened to the Vikings Packers game. Well, and then I got off in time to watch the second half. So Darnold passed Brett Favre for fourth place in touchdown passes in his debut season.
Oh my God. Aww. This is so unbelievable. He pressed Brett Favre of all people. My God, the NFL is so in trouble.
Yeah, so I think he has 33 touchdown passes. I think that pass probably has 34 because it says Brett Favre had 33 in 2009. So he probably has the most touchdown passes in a single.
By the way, speaking of Brett Favre, you know who I think needs to retire now? I think it's his time to go.
Aaron Rodgers.
That dude is this season, man. He's done. There's nothing left. His team sucks. He's mediocre. New York Jets in general as a franchise is done. They're never going to be good, at least in my lifetime. Well, like really good.
Yeah, there was a Jeopardy question because was it the third Super Bowl that they ever played in, or second or third?
Even when Aaron Rodgers plays, well, it won't matter because his team sucks.
Right. So didn't the Jets play in the third ever Super Bowl? Was it?
Yeah, they played in a Super Bowl.
Yeah, but the third ever Super Bowl, because there was a Jeopardy question that said this NFL team has.
Yeah.
Yeah, this
that was them.
Played in the third ever NFL Super Bowl, the third ever Super Bowl. It hasn't been back since then. And the answer was, who are the New York Jets?
Man, it's even crazier. The team that they beaten is a team that ended up backstabbing their city, who now, in my opinion, arguably has an even better team.
It's actually funny. So Aaron Rodgers, I guess, is talking about a run for president. I just saw something on the Daily Show about that in a few years, and I thought I made a funny comment. I was like, imagine if he selects Brett Favre as his running mate if that were to happen. Can you imagine that? Because they have similar politics. So can you imagine an Aaron Rodgers, Brett Favre presidential ticket?
I should mention that let me try to think about this. So yeah, you talked about. Oh no, I now know I know what I was going to say. So for any of you NFL historians here, especially Danny, between the two Baltimore teams in NFL history, who do you think is better? Who would you prefer to have? The Baltimore Colts or the Baltimore Ravens?
Well, the Ravens, I mean, had to have a lot more success as of now than the Baltimore Colts did. I know the Baltimore Colts were one of the first few successful teams in the NFL championship era, but I believe right now the Ravens have more success overall. I mean, obviously it's on a fair sample size, you know.
The Ravens are. Listen, I grew up with watching the Baltimore Ravens, and to be honest, this is they kind of give me a bit of like a Raiders vibe because of the fact they literally played in the fucking hood. Ravens fans don't fuck around when compared to like Colts fans, honestly. It's completely different. But I will say that the Baltimore Ravens, I don't know how they do it, but they have like some of the most sustainable success in the history of the National Football League, at least so far. Baltimore is literally, they are a very good team, though I will say I don't know how far Lamar Jackson is going to take them in the playoffs, but I would watch out for them.
Yeah, Lamar Jackson is my favorite quarterback to watch in the league, I think.
I mean, he's very fun to watch, but he's not my personal favorite quarterback to watch, though. I know I may sound biased, but I'm definitely still going to say Brock Purdy because I like a good underdog story.
Yeah.
The thing about Lamar was that he was drafted high in the draft. That's the big difference between him and the other quarterbacks, is that he was drafted very high. Lamar came from the 2018 class. And let me see here. Let me see who came from the 2018 class. Oh, yeah, Baker Mayfield was from this class. Saquon Barkley was from this class. Okay. You got some really good players here. Not bad, not bad. Yeah, there's a lot of Pro Bowls in that 2018 class. Speaking of which, Baker Mayfield this year has been wow. Like, have any of you guys watched Baker Mayfield? Like, he's now actually living up to what he was advertised as, like, before the 2018 draft.
Yeah,
He's like finally the quarterback that everybody like was hyping up about like many years ago. And I remember when he was drafted, people were hyping up, but I was like, he was not going to have success in Cleveland. And for the most part, I was correct. He did not have success for Cleveland. He failed in Cleveland. But in Tampa, he's been amazing. And he made the playoffs. He won a playoff game. So I can't take that away from him. And his playoff numbers are outstanding too. In just 2 seasons. Like in 2020 and 23, he's been pretty good in the playoffs. He's not thrown a lot of picks. He's thrown a lot of TD passes, thrown a lot of passing yards. Baker's fun. He's a lot of fun. And I think Tampa's going to make the playoffs. Wow, Frank must be a real OG. He remembers Burt Jones?
Oh.
Damn.
Oh yeah, shout out to Otis and Frank Weber with talking about Johnny Unitas. I actually remember reading a short book about Johnny Unitas. Actually, I think it was focused on a father and son in New York going seeing the Giants play the Colts with Johnny Unitas. I remember reading it when I was maybe 11 or something. I remember reading a cool story about that. I think it was about the coldest NFL game ever. I think was
the greatest game ever.
Yeah, I think that. Yeah, I think that's what it was. Yeah, but it was. Yeah, greatest game ever played, 1958 NFL championship game. Yeah, where the Colts beat the Giants 23-17.
Johnny Unitas
was the MVP.
Johnny Unitas has to be. Imagine what he would do in today's NFL.
Yeah. And
Holy
the game
crap!
Was played at Yankee Stadium as well.
Johnny Unitas would be carving defenses up right now with today's NFL, like with all the rules and the modern gear. This is not a defensive friendly era in the National Football League. It's more of an offensive friendly era. I have absolutely no doubt that if Unitas were playing today, he would absolutely be. I think he would break a lot of records right now. He was that good. Same with Montana. If they played in today's NFL, they would not throw a lot of picks. They would definitely be scorched. They would go full scorched earth.
Montana would have been protected way better as well.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And also, let's see here. Is Brock Purdy worth the money? My answer is yes. The question is, Kyle Shanahan worth? This is kind of hard for me because, listen, Kyle has done a lot in the last 3-4 years, but I'm very conflicted. I honestly think they should risk keeping him another year just to see if there's anything left, but they need to revamp the entire coaching staff. The defensive coordinator is not good. The offensive coordinator is not good.
Kyle is the offensive coordinator, but my thing is, I think that that someone else should be the offensive coordinator. And Kyle would still have more control over the offensive plays than a normal head coach would over the offensive coordinator.
They need to rehire Robert Saleh as defensive coordinator.
I have a good feeling that actually will happen after. As soon as we hit February, I have a good feeling that we'll actually see that happen.
I believe Robert Saleh is a good coordinator, but not a good head coach. And by the way, Cliff Kingsbury, I gotta say, he's actually turned his career around in Washington. He's now, he's an offensive coordinator for Washington right now, and he got Jaden Daniels on the right track. So perhaps maybe his true calling is being a coordinator, not as a head coach. But yeah, Washington just made the playoffs last night. They beat Atlanta, and Atlanta is now on the brink of elimination.
Now, to answer Sentinel's question, this year Brock Purdy has not played like a $60 million quarterback. Last year he did. So I would want them to pay him a little bit less than that, maybe 45 to 50 million if possible. But if you're at the point where his agent is like, no, I demand 60 million, then you might just have to pull the trigger on it in that case.
They need to fire Sorensen. They need to fire the special teams coach. They need to fix the O-line in the
That probably
draft.
should have been done with all the special teams fuck-ups they've had this year. That probably should have been done midway through the season. But at the same time, I can kind of see why, Kyle might be like, oh, that's not the coach's fault,
But seriously, they're going to have to eventually they're going to have to really do a lot of revamping on the staff. They literally have no choice but to do that. And also maybe make some major changes to the roster too next year. Some guys are getting older. I feel like Debo is not coming back next year.
Yeah, Debo almost definitely is not going to be back next year.
Well, he's gone. He's gone.
Yeah. So Jawan Jennings is still under contract. I think next year he'll be a free agent after next year, and I have a feeling that they'll try to re-sign him unless they trade him for some value, because Jawan Jennings has had a hell of a year this year. He's been more than just third in Jawan. He's been active on every down. Brandon Ayuk, I believe, won't be fully healthy by week 1 of next season. He'll probably be healthy by like week 5 or something, I believe. So, yeah, how about getting Jim Schwartz? That'd be a handshake of a hire.
I just bring back Saleh. The defensive players that are still there love him.
Absolutely. And Otis, it would be sad because Debo's been a great 49er, but this year has not been good for him at all. And the way he handled that, tweeting, "Oh, it's not my fault that I'm not strong. I'm just not getting the ball." And then, deleting the tweet, not standing by it, or saying you still stand by it when asked about it in the press conference, but then, still, not standing by it. They keep it up, and then tweeting, "Oh, just because, I'm, just because I'm venting, this means that people think that means that I'm hating on my teammates." Well, I mean, that's kind of what the tweet looks like. So that whole thing is just, no, and then it's going to cost too much for them to re-sign Debo anyway.
They got to make some sacrifices. And I believe Debo is going to be the sacrifice to keep the team going. They have to build around Brock. They can't just focus on keeping pieces that are obviously kind of, I honestly feel like extending Ayuk was a mistake. They should have traded him for some draft picks, if not for an even better receiver.
I mean, Ayuk had an incredible year last year, but the fact that the whole drama lasted the whole offseason, you can't say that that's not what caused Ayuk to have such a bad year before he got hurt. Finally, he started to look good in the game against the Chiefs when he got hurt, and then in the game before that's kind of when he started to somewhat look like himself. I believe they played the Cardinals week. It was when they played the Cardinals week before that, and you saw Ayuk, have a few catches. But you cannot say that the whole distraction of that and the not having training camp was what caused him to not be prepared for the season. So that was just a whole shit show. And, a team, I think that's another part of why the whole Super Bowl hangover thing is a thing, is because after
I blame the Madden curse.
So hard. Well, yeah, that too. But after you lose the Super Bowl, you try so hard to get back that and you'll have Ayuk immediately taking advantage of the fact that he had such a breakout year that he wanted to get all the money that he thinks he's worth instantly. Yeah, and I don't want to. If somehow Debo is back next year, I don't want to see him come out of the backfield at all. I always want to see him as a receiver, because that's. At worked in 2021, those Debo in the backfield, that was a big sneaky weapon that has had on offense, but it just hasn't, teams have defenses have figured it out, and it's just not reliable anymore.
Ricky Pearsall has some promise, but it's clear that the gunshot wound kind of affected him a bit.
Well, that was crazy. I mean, when he had that touchdown in Tampa, I was like, "Oh, let's go, let's fucking go, Ricky!" He's gonna He's going to be the comeback player of the year after being shot, but he's not been good since then, and he's not good at separating and all that. But I'll say that possibly, when you have a, Ricky Pearsall a year removed from all that next year, that we might see a better version of him possibly, because so far he's somewhat played like a bust, but next season that could not be, that could be a different story. Oh, Frank, yeah, how was the Cow Palace in 1982, the vintage store? How was that? I've seen, when I've traveled to the Bay Area, I've seen the Cow Palace. Actually, I think I saw it on the Cow Train. I know they do events. That definitely looks like a cool place to.
Last year, I went to the Cow Palace for the Charles Dickens Fair during holiday season. It's fun.
Giselle says we need Brock to get stronger and put more zip on the ball. Did you see Bo Nix out there? The zip he already has on the ball. So still being catchable is impressive. Yeah, that's what you saw Brock in 2022 and last year. That's what you saw. You definitely saw that more. Brock still has a good arm overall, but he makes, he's better at the checkdowns and the short passes this year than he is, throwing it deep. With the deep ball. And, and he also did have a shoulder injury this year. They say he's fully healthy now, but that definitely in the last few years, that definitely could have contributed to the struggles he's had in the last few games, is coming off that shoulder injury. And which is another reason why I don't think it's a good idea to have him be starting these week 17 and week 18. Even though we're probably only going to see him in for a series or two, I still, think it's too much of a, risk versus reward. Too risky that he could somehow tear his ACL and be out for a good majority, if not the whole year next year. Which would
the Rams are. Here's the thing: Matthew Stafford is like 36 years old. He's not getting any younger as we speak. He probably has around. You know what? I'll be generous. I'll say he has like 2 to 3 years left before he leaves the game. And he's definitely, I think by the end of the day, he's probably going to have around 400 touchdown passer. So he's going to be up there with the all-time greats who were able to get that high, like in the statistics, like all time. But can he win another big game? Nope. I don't think he's going to win another Super Bowl. I think 2021 will be the only one he won. And I think he should be very appreciative of it. And the LA Ram fans should be appreciative too that they saw Stafford win at least one. Because
the Lions fans will be, will always be appreciated on his career there as in Detroit as well. He's had a good NFL career. He got drafted right after that 0-16 team in 2008, which of course Dan Campbell was also on.
If only he had Megatron just a little longer.
Man, imagine Calvin Johnson on this Lions team.
Calvin Johnson. No, I think Calvin Johnson would have retired by now, honestly.
Well, no, I'm just imagine like if you put it like in a scenario where he's younger than.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, that if Calvin Johnson were playing right now, oh man, he'd be. He would never want to retire. I feel like that's part of the reason why he retired. The Lions were terrible, and he didn't want to play for them anymore. It's sort of the same reason why.
Same thing with Larry Fitzgerald as well with the Cardinals. I mean,
No, Fitzgerald was just too old, and he knew too. He was cooked. But Barry Sanders, though, he retired when he was still in his prime. Andrew Luck also retired in his prime too, but he had a good reason for leaving. The injuries were catching up to him, and he felt if he continued to play more, he was going to literally freaking die.
Wasn't he under 30 when he retired?
Yeah, he was like around like 29 or so.
Yeah,
it was sad.
Yeah, I was at an ASU Stanford game in 2010 when Andrew Luck made an incredible pass. It's actually on YouTube. You can look at it. Let me actually look at it real quickly right now. Yeah, there was a 50-yard pass while falling to his knees. I remember. You remember the whole "suck for luck" chants was going on?
I wonder if the 49ers should have did that in 2010 or no 2011. Just like he would tell Jed, like, listen, on purpose, we're gonna suck this year, but in 2012 we're gonna suddenly blow the fuck up. I feel like I don't know. I feel like in retrospect, 49ers should have just sucked for luck in 2011. I don't know why, but then we wouldn't have gotten the magic run that we gotten.
Right.
Can you imagine if Andrew Luck was able to stick with Jim Harbaugh?
Yeah, no, that would have been really cool. And Stanford had a hell of a had a fun team. I had Toby Gerhart too, and they won the Orange Bowl in 2010 as well. And
Stanford football has fallen off so badly. They have not. That program is cooked. It's done, and it only worsened once they went to the ACC.
And I remember actually after that Orange Bowl game, both Harbaugh and Andrew Luck were interviewed, and Harbaugh was asked one question. Then he's like, "Hey, talk to Luck. He's right here. Ask him everything you want." And of course, because people thought that after 2010, Andrew Luck would go into the NFL, but he decided to play in his senior year at Stanford.
No, that was smart.
Yeah, definitely contributed to more success in the NFL. And the whole thing when Adam Schefter tweeted during that preseason, like during the game, that Andrew Luck had retired and he got booed. I definitely think that it was handled poorly by him and should have been handled better.
Andrew Luck, in my opinion, will go down as one of the great
short-term career quarterbacks.
Yeah, it's too bad those injuries ended his career so soon. He definitely, I feel like had he had a full career, he definitely would have been one of the greats. Because Luck definitely had it in him to be an all-time great. It's just he just couldn't take it anymore.
Yeah.
And by the way, did you hear that he's now been tasked to fix the Stanford program?
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I do remember that. Yeah, I heard he did get hired, but is he like the general manager?
Yes. And he's now going to try to fix the program and get it back to glory. And I hope he succeeds because I want Stanford to be good again.
Yeah, Stanford would still be my college. Even though I'm not a huge college fan, Stanford would, that's right where I was born. Literally,
I was born at the Children's Hospital at Stanford.
That's right. We both were. Yeah,
I go to San Francisco State, and I know like I'll be a Gator and I'll be rooting for the Gators in any sport where they are in. But when it comes to college football, I'm always going to root for Stanford, and in college basketball too. I'll always root for Stanford. I'm a native Cardinal.
My hometown ASU is having a hell of a year this year. That Cam Scadaboo is amazing.
Oh, we got SF State alumni in here. I'm actually there.
Otis is shout out. Otis is in SF. Yeah, so is Adam Copeland at KMBR as well.
I gotta say, my impression of SF State right now, by the way, the school itself, it's a pretty nice school. I like it. I have no qualms about SF State. It's a very, the campus when compared to the community college I was in, it's nice. It's like it's actually alive. It's like a city within a city or something. Like it's like so much is going on. And there's so much like variety too with the food around. There's so many good classes. Like there is so much happening. I mean, I knew it was a real college campus once I saw like political protests. I was like, yep, this is a real big time university.
I mean, you probably see that at every university nowadays. But I guess that's how you know it's like an actual university, not just some community college, right?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, the universities are fun. I mean, it's way better than community college. A little expensive though, I will say, but it's worth it. I like SF State so far. I have no problems with it.
How long have you been going there?
Yeah. Only like one semester. I'm a freshman. Or I was. No, I still am a freshman. I won't be a sophomore until literally next fall, which will be August 25. And I think I'm going to graduate around 27. That's my goal. But thing is though, Yeah. Oh, yeah. So Candlestick was like the Millennium Falcon for us. She may not have looked like much, but she had it where it counted. Yeah. I mean, listen, Candlestick Park was an ugly stadium, okay? But its look was iconic. The field was great for football, and the weather was, I mean, here's the thing. I feel like Santa Clara, if I want to be honest now, like 10 years later after playing at Levi's, I feel like Santa Clara County is more of a, I feel like it would have been better if it was like, if it had like a Major League Baseball team. The weather is more suited for Major League Baseball. But for football, I don't know. I'm sort of in between.
Yeah, well, the weather in San Jose, it's good weather, but for building an outdoor football stadium, it sucks in that case. And
the problem. Listen, I have no issue with them playing. I have no issue with them playing in Santa Clara County, especially the neighborhood they're in. I mean, it's a lot safer. I mean, I'd rather be in the Great American neighborhood than being in the Hunters Point neighborhood where Candlestick was. I mean, that was the hood, and the Niners left the hood. But some people can argue that the Niners leaving the hood actually hurt them, sort of like how the Raiders did when they left Oakland for Vegas. You see, there's the argument to be made that great football teams, like of all time, all play in the hood. The Ravens still play in the hood. For a very long time, the Raiders played in the hood. The Browns play in the hood.
Yeah, I was in Cleveland for my cousin's wedding in September. I walked by where the Browns. And actually, I would disagree. That's not really where that is, where the Browns Stadium is. And I heard they're actually getting a new stadium. It's not in the hood. It's actually right next to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. So it's actually in Cleveland. Probably doesn't have a lot of hoods.
No, Cleveland is too infamous. No, Cleveland is very much a hood to me. But I'm telling you, like some of the great teams of all time, they've all played in the hood. I mean, Atlanta plays in the hood. Carolina, I don't think is a hood team. No, Detroit is a hood team.
Too many team beaters.
Philadelphia is a hood team.
Yeah, their fans are something else.
Seattle is kind of in between. The Rams, I think, are sort of a hood team.
Yeah,
I don't know. Inglewood is
I would say Inglewood is kind of like I went to the NFC Championship game in Inglewood, and we walked. We ended up walking back to because we stayed in Inglewood too, so we ended up walking an hour back to the hotel. It was like LA. In itself, you wouldn't think of it as a hood place, but Inglewood, yeah, that's definitely not like the nicest part of LA, I'll just say.
I mean, here's the thing, though. From my point of view, it's not like I didn't want them to not play in the hood, because here's the thing. Again, it came down to the weather, and I felt like Candlestick Park had more fitting weather for the National Football League. Like, when I think of football, like weather, I think of cold. I think of like misty, sort of wet. Like maybe some snow on the ground, muddy. I think of some of like the roughest conditions in fall and winter. I don't think of like warm, sunny, and clear when it comes to the NFL. No, I don't think about that. I think of like cold, like pretty crappy weather, overcast. That's what I think of when it comes to, and that's why I remember when Niners played the Green Bay Packers last year. Remember that game where it was like freaking pouring all over? For once, it looked like Candlestick. And also the year before, when they played Seattle, it was overcast too. It really resembled Candlestick. Now, but yeah, so when the Candlestick weather does come down on Levi's, then that's where, in my opinion, the stadium does shine. To me, it's
it's the best. Like
weather.
Tomorrow, of course, tomorrow's a night game. The night games at Levi's are cool because then you don't have to worry about the heat and all that.
No, that's another thing. Listen, I would like to answer someone in the chat. You see, Eddie DeBartolo Jr. actually had a plan in place around like 1997. So around the time when he was getting the book thrown at him for, I guess, his little riverboat casino thingy in Louisiana. He had a plan in place where he would build a stadium at the Candlestick site. It was going to also have a shopping mall like adjacent to it, which probably would have been out of business by now, if he wanted me to be honest. Maybe it would have been like Gillette, like, Patriot Place or something like that. It's sort of like a little modern village. Like that's like right next to Gillette Stadium. It's really nice, by the way, if you guys should check it out. But yeah, Eddie had a big plan in place. It was going to include shade. It would have probably resembled CenturyLink Field. I don't know if any of you have seen the designs for the stadium, but it really reminds me of what Seattle's Lumen Field looks like.
And
I'll put in the private chat. I'll put in the private chat.
I saw the thing you sent me in the private chat about the Niners meeting with Jim Harbaugh working out with Jimmy G in 2014. That was very interesting as well. I think that if they had built Levi's Stadium the same design that it was at Hunters Point, at Candlestick's exact location, it would have been perfect because the design. I mean, a lot of people. I don't even mind the design itself. I think it's just the location with that design. So if you had Levi's design exactly the way it was, just at where Candlestick used to be, it would be perfect weather-wise. It wouldn't get too hot there. The wind would. I mean, it occasionally might get a little hot, but in the September games, but the wind would actually make it cool for the most part. And you wouldn't have to worry about that. Because I don't think the design itself, I mean, it's compared to other NFL stadiums, it's kind of shitty. But overall, I don't think it's that bad of a design. It's just the location where it's at. And it's especially it being in the flight path of the San Jose airport where they can't build a dome on it.
I mean, as I said, Eddie was planning something big, but it didn't go anywhere. They had issues. It was politics related. Like nobody in SF wanted to pay for it at that time. Okay, so this is page 19 of the 49ers web zone. And then I'll also link the SF Gate article in the private chat too. But yeah, here's some things to check out. But yeah, he had something big planned. It was going to be something had he been able to pull it off. But it didn't go through, and then the Niners decided to just relocate to Santa Clara instead. Which, in my opinion, as I said, I think it's good for baseball, but it's not good for football. But even then, I think the way it could have been redeemed is if they built shade over it. If they thought about shade. I think if there was shade over, like, the largest part of the stadium, I don't think anyone would complain about Levi's right now. That's really its only fatal design. Like, that's its biggest design flaw, is that it doesn't have shade, which makes day games a hell on earth until like around late October or so, like near Halloween. So you cannot go to.
Because I went to in 2019, 2020 year. I traveled to the Bay Area to go to the divisional game against the Vikings, and I was sitting up high. And even then, like the weather was nice because it was January. Even then, it got a little hot, and I actually had to. I wore a hoodie because of the heat because it was. Cool enough where I could wear a hoodie and not be hot. But I was literally wearing a hoodie to avoid being hot.
I would not. I'm going to be clear here. I would go to a 49er game in Santa Clara, but I wouldn't go there like during the early part of the season.
Yeah.
It's sort of like the opposite of how people are too scared to go to Green Bay Packer games during winter. But thing is that I bet the Green Bay people, the locals there, be like, don't be a wuss. Taking the cold. It's part of football weather in the Rust Belt.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay.
I'd want to visit Lambeau. I prefer to probably go in a September game.
Oh, yeah. You're too scared to go into the cold? I mean, yeah, it's brutal. It's really... I've been to the Rust Belt. I've been to, like, Indianapolis to go visit family during winter, and oh, my God, is it bad in winter.
Yeah, no, I've been on the East Coast during wintertime. I've been to, Annapolis, Maryland, and New York City, New Jersey, and I stayed there to visit family. And yeah, it's incredibly cold, of course. 3 years ago, my aunt and uncle actually were living in Ottawa, Canada, and I went there, and it was 9 degrees.
I would not. I wouldn't go, but like, here's the thing, though. I do want to go to Lambeau Field for at least one game. It doesn't have to be the Niners and Packers. It could just be any game. I would like to go. I mean, I feel like it's like sort of how, like, how like Muslims like go on this pilgrimage to Saudi Arabia to go see the big shrine. Like, they go on this big pilgrimage. I feel like it should be a tradition for NFL fans at some point in their lives to make the same pilgrimage to Green Bay, Wisconsin, to go see a game at Lambeau Field.
And the only thing you would have to do, I guess, would just, wear a lot of mittens and gloves, because I think the issue is your hand freezes, and that's a...
But you know what? When Jimmy was playing in the game against the Packers in the playoffs years ago, he didn't even look shaken up. That's partly because he grew up there.
Yeah,
He grew up there. He knows that weather. I think that's part of the reason why he wasn't panicking as much. He got sacked a lot. I remember that game. It was a defensive slugfest. But it's kind of funny because Aaron Rodgers grew up in California, and it took him some years to get used to the Green Bay weather. But I still think he would have preferred San Francisco because the weather was more to his liking.
Same thing with Josh Allen. Of course, he's from Firebog, and then able to go into Buffalo and completely get used to the weather like it's nothing.
By the way, speaking of which, he's from the San Joaquin Valley. Josh Allen. He's literally from here. We've had a lot of good quarterbacks that came out of California. But also, what was I gonna say? It was regarding
Well, real quickly, while you're gathering your train of thought there, I wanted to address what Otis was saying about how the 100-degree game. Yeah, it was the Cardinals game. And I remember I listened to some of the Cardinals commentators in the pregame of that game. And they're talking about how the hot weather was going to give the Cardinals an advantage. And it kind of did. But what's funny, though, is the Cardinals playing at State Farm Stadium, they practice indoors. They don't. So they wouldn't even have, be as used to that, because people here during the summer, what they do is they go in the pool and they stay, inside. So, a lot of people here in the Phoenix area can avoid the heat easily. My dad is actually somewhat nuts, and he loves the heat as long as it's dry, and he'll go for long walks when it's 100 degrees, no problem. There's some people that are a little crazy like that too. But I think that the weather probably gave the Cardinals a little bit of an advantage, and that, and plus the fact that DeAndre Campbell gave up a big run to Kyler Murray in the first drive of the game. And the fact that the Niners did not execute in that game.
49ers blew a lot of games this year, to be fair.
Yeah. And they lost, the division games they lost were the most unacceptable part of the season, I would say.
But yeah, again, I feel like NFL fans should make that pilgrimage to Green Bay at least just once. It doesn't have to be a playoff game. It doesn't have to be regular season, preseason. It doesn't matter. Just go to Green Bay once in your lifetime and go see a game there, because it's literally the mecca of American gridiron football. You have to go to Green Bay just once.
Yeah. I do put that is on my bucket list to do someday.
To go to Green Bay?
Yeah.
It's literally where the NFL, as we know it now, was sort of created. And also, it doesn't help that, talking about winter places. There's a reason why most teams in the National Football League, in the Rust Belt, all prefer domes over their friggin' actually playing in the outdoors. The Vikings, the Colts, the Lions play in domes. Let me try to think who also plays in domes in the Rust Belt. Let me try to think about this.
So when you say the Rust, what are you referring to when you say the Rust Belt?
Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Indiana, Minnesota, Illinois, Ohio. That's what I've heard.
I'll actually gotta bring up what Sentinel said a little bit ago. He said, I guess the Bears owners are looking to get a dome and destroy Soldier Field. Does anyone have any idea how blasphemous that would be? Yeah.
Listen, I want to give my take on the McCaskies here. They need to go. Once Virginia Hallis passes away, they need to sell the team. They are not fit to be owners in professional sports. They have done nothing but destroy their team. They have done nothing to improve their team. They have done nothing. They need to go. The McCaskies need to sell. And I feel like them trying to leave Soldier Field is a massive slap in the face to their fans, because Soldier Field is part of history. And they already bastardized Soldier Field. They tried to remodel it instead of not sticking to the history. They screwed up where Green Bay succeeded with Lambeau Field. They really failed to preserve Soldier Field. It's one of the worst stadiums in the National Football League. And it's small as hell too. It's 62,000. Like the original Soldier Field was it had like 66,000 seats. That's unacceptable. Soldier Field was like a freaking coliseum. If you recall the original design of it, it was literally a coliseum. It was literally a masterclass. Like, I don't know if you've seen Soldier Field before they bastardized it, but it was one of the best stadiums in the National Football League. And it's very unfortunate they ruined it. It's an American historical site, and they should not leave it. But if they do leave it, it would be a furthering. I mean, I would really hate to see Caleb Williams being wasted there. It would really suck. Oh, yeah, I forgot.
It's funny you mentioned that. It's just real quickly. So, Soldier Field, you say it looks like a spaceship from the outside. A lot of people say that about State Farm Stadium here in Phoenix or in Glendale. A lot of people say that looks like a spaceship as well.
By the way, we were talking about Buffalo, Josh Allen. Now I know what I was going to talk about. I regained my train of thought. So, guys, in a few years from now, Buffalo is going to have a new stadium. The Bills are going to blow up their old one and move into the new one, and this will be a dome.
Yeah, I did hear about that. Yeah, this is like it's
new Highmark Stadium.
What's the last year of the old Highmark Stadium? You know what the last season is going to be for that?
2025. 2025. Next year will be the last season before they blow up the old one.
Okay.
A lot of New Yorkers, like people with living in the state, were very polarized over this project, as you can imagine, because just like Santa Clara County, taxpayers had to sort of like make some sacrifices to build this thing. But I mean, the Bills at this point deserve it because they actually played like hell in the last few years or so. I mean, there's no reason not to give them a new stadium, but I think they should completely pay for it on their own terms, and so do the other owners. Or like, I don't know, private bankers or something. They should be the ones financing this shit and not the taxpayers of New York. A state that is already like sort of like losing some population due to its high cost of living there. But yeah, so I'm looking over the list of stadiums in the NFL. So the teams that play in the Rust Belt, okay, that have domes. US Bank Stadium is a dome. Ford Field is a dome. Lucas Oil Stadium is a dome. Highmark Stadium, which is common for years, is a dome. Now, the ones that are not domes are Paycor Stadium, which it was a.k.a. Paul Brown Stadium. That's in Cincinnati. Cleveland is still playing outdoors, along with Soldier Field and Lambeau Field. Lincoln Financial Field, M&T Bank Stadium, and Heinz Stadium, they're all they're all outdoors. And I don't know, but I guess, and also, by the way, it also looks like the Washington Commanders are trying to look for a new stadium. By the way, I also sometimes still call them the Redskins.
Yeah, old habits die hard. And a lot of people, I personally don't mind the name Commanders because I get, DC Commanders-in-Chief, Commander-in-Chief. I get it.
I know a lot of people are polarized over the name, and I know some people are conflicted on what to still call them, but I still call them the Redskins because that's what I've been used to calling them. That's what my generation hasn't always known them as. You probably sometimes would mistake them for the Redskins. Be honest.
Yeah.
It's like how we sometimes mistake the Chargers for the San Diego Chargers, not LA Chargers.
So I like to call them the San Diego Chargers because I think it's ridiculous.
Because
LA.
No, listen, I will always call them the San Diego Chargers. You know why? Because that's their true home.
Right.
It's always going to be their home.
Yeah, and shout out to Rockin' New Era 84. And since Rockin' New Era is in here, I have to replay my intro real quickly that I made. Hold on, I think I gotta go to the beginning of it.
The Gold with Danny Golding starts now.
That's gold, Jerry. Gold!
And the Giants have won. They have won the World Series for the third time in 5 years.
The road to redemption has brought the Warriors back home. The Golden Golden State Warriors are the 2017 NBA champions.
Now your host, Danny Golden.
Yeah, I just wanted to play that. I thought Rockin would like the. I played a little Seinfeld clip in there. I know you're a big fan of Seinfeld, so I thought you would like that. Appreciate that, Otis, as well. Yeah, the intros. I thought I put it together pretty well. I'm gonna try to do more podcasts. That's gonna be the intro for it as well. I'm actually planning to do one on maybe in the afternoon on New Year's Eve. I was gonna actually break down the top 10 Bay Area sports stories of 2024. So if anyone would like to join me for that.
Oh man, so many teams in this region are so cooked right now. Even the Warriors are cooked.
Yeah, what are your thoughts on the Draymond situation that I talked a little bit about before you came on?
Draymond, can he just for once not be an idiot?
Yeah, I will say that I do like that he's not afraid to stand by how he feels, and when he's asked, about, why did you do this? He never sugarcoats that he's sick to, his true feelings on that. Now, what he did last night with Buddy Hield, I don't know. It's not, he did it just straight out of emotion. It's not like he had time to really think about it. But I think what's funny is that he airballs a shot, and then he gets mad at Buddy Hield after for almost turning it over before that. So I thought he was kind of more reacting to how he airballed the shot more than actually maybe being as pissed at Buddy Hield in that moment. And I'll actually, for those of you that don't know what I'm talking about, here's what happened.
That is awesome. Good news. Buddy Hield got to be careful there. Draymond saved that turnover. He's got to beat the shot clock buzzer. And Warriors turn it over with the 24-second violation there on the air ball.
You're just trying to think about your shot selection. Draymond had to shoot that with the shot clock running down.
But you saw Draymond's ferocity there. Hey, wake the fuck up! Enough of the sloppy passes. We got to win this game.
It's funny because I expected because I fell asleep or less. I didn't actually get a chance to watch this game. So when I saw that he'd done that, I thought that when you heard Draymond kind of yell in the background that's when he was saying that. I didn't expect you to actually be able to hear it so well on the broadcast after the fact. And yeah, but that was a good game. That's how the Warriors beat the Suns 109-105. Of course, I went to the last time the Warriors played the Suns, in the game that I went to, they came not even close to beating them. They didn't even have a lead against them since, past the first quarter. But hey, thank you, Rocky New Area. We appreciate you tuning in for a little bit. And yeah, I remember you told me on Twitter DM that you went to Anaheim, so I hope you had a good time at good old Disneyland. Before I end this stream, which I'm actually going to do in a few minutes, I actually wanted to just sort of tie to NFL things. I wanted to ask, everyone, and I guess, Sean, you already said your bucket list goal would be Lambeau Field, or the stadium that you'd want to check out. And that would be mine too, but the one that I would say that I'd want to check out maybe first would be the Superdome in New Orleans, which I'm considering possibly doing next season because the Niners are.
The Superdome's the Super Bowl. It's literally the Super Bowl. It's where it hosted the most Super Bowls ever.
Yeah, and that's where the Super Bowl is going to be this year.
I nickname it. I literally nicknamed that place the Super Bowl. It's the definitive Super Bowl stadium. No doubt.
And New Orleans is definitely a cool city to want to check out as well. And also, I think Miami, a Hard Rock Stadium in Miami would be a cool place to check out as well. But so everyone in the chat before we end the stream, just what is the number one stadium that? And I guess it can be in any. It doesn't have to even be a football stadium. I'd love to go to Wrigley Field, for example, in baseball. I'd love to go to Fenway Park.
You got to go to. I haven't been to Wrigley, but I really want to go there. That looks like baseball mecca right there. Either that or Fenway Stadium or Fenway Park. Yankee Stadium. Well, the original Yankee Stadium is long gone by now, so forget about that. But, I mean, most of the classic stadiums are no longer around anymore. But, I mean, if I had to pick a couple, yeah, it'd be Fenway, Wrigley, definitely Yankee Stadium. I wouldn't mind also – let me think. What would be other good ones? I know people will say Dodger Stadium, but I'm like, ew.
Well,
I'll probably get shocked there.
PNC Park, which I'm actually planning to check out next.
Oh, that's a good stadium. That's a good stadium.
Good one, yeah.
I like Petco Park. That is really nice.
I've been to Petco a few times, and it is really nice. It might be, I would say either Petco or PNC would be number 2, with Oracle Park being number 1, of course, in MLB stadiums.
Petco Park would be another good one. Let me think. Because I know there are a lot of good stadiums in Major League Baseball now. Like, most of the crappy stadiums have now been blown up or replaced. I mean, the Coliseum was the last one, and it's gone now. Or at least they're not playing there anymore. It won't get blown up yet immediately, but they're definitely not going to do anything there for a while. I definitely like where the Cardinals play. Buck Stadium. I like that. Minute Maid Park in Minute Maid Field in Houston. That's pretty good too. I like Citi Field. That's a very nice stadium.
Yeah, I checked out when I went to Dallas for the Eclipse this year. I went to a Rangers game in Arlington. I didn't actually go to the whole game, but I went because I got there a little bit late. But I saw a few innings at that stadium. That stadium was pretty cool as well. Good Globe Life Field.
In Arlington, yeah, the new one.
Yeah, that's right.
By the way, are you aware that Tampa's ballpark got blown up by the hurricane?
Yes, I am. And you want to know a crazy thing? So the very same day that the Tropicana field got blown up by that, the roof got blown up by that hurricane. On that exact same day was when the Tropicana Hotel got demolished in Vegas.
Oh,
what are the odds of that?
Oh, what a coincidence!
Yeah,
they both get blown up on the same day. My stance on that whole situation with Tampa is, I mean, it's obvious what needs to be done. The Rays should stay in Tampa Bay. It's not even a debate. They should stay there. That's their home. It's where their fan base is. They've had success there in the last few years. There's no excuse to not, stay in Tampa. They should stay. Build a new park there.
I mean, did they have that big of a fan base? So, I mean, hey, although it would not work for division-wise, I thought it would be cool if the Rays moved to Vegas to become the Vegas Rays, and then the A's could stay in Sacramento and actually get a new stadium in Sacramento.
No, even better. How about the A's stay in Sacramento and the Rays stay in Tampa, and Montreal doesn't get a team because Montreal clearly did not do enough to support the Expos, which led them to becoming what we now know as the present-day Nationals. Now, Toronto, on the other hand, is being smart. They actually have supported their team, and it looks like they are going to get a new stadium very soon to replace Rogers Center.
Really? I like the Rogers. The Rogers Center actually looks like a nice. Like, I went to Toronto.
They actually remodeled it as of late. The interior is now. They extended the life of Rogers Center by 10 years. Now, one
have
team
a
that
hotel
definitely
you can look at right next.
Yeah.
Like you can watch games for there. I saw that. That would be a cool place to check out as well.
One team that definitely needs to have their place. That definitely needs to leave places. How do you feel about the White Sox? They play in the hood, I think, because Southside Chicago is rough.
Yeah.
It's where my
their stadium doesn't look bad. Like when I Googled when I've seen games of their stadium, I thought it doesn't look so bad. But I looked up what the worst rated stadiums were, and that was listed worse than the Coliseum, though, which was kind of surprising, I guess. I
mean, most MLB stadiums now are actually fine. They're decent. I mean, I'm surprised they're trying to replace Chase Field in Arizona.
I was about to say, Chase Field. Okay, I'll say Chase Field. It's an okay stadium, but when I go to a lot of Giants D-backs games at Chase Field, and then I'll go to Oracle Park too. And then the difference between the two stadiums is kind of amazing because with one only being 2 years, the fact that Oracle Park is only 2 years younger than Chase Field. Chase Field is a good stadium still, but I think it's somewhat outdated at the same time.
Chase looks fine to me. I don't know why with the complaints. I mean, it's like when the Braves left Turner Field. It didn't look like it had a lot of problems.
Yeah, no, it's overall still a good stadium. I mean, there's rumors about the Coyotes got up and left.
Yeah, they went to Salt Lake. They went to Salt Lake City, which actually makes sense because Salt Lake is a winter sports city.
Well, I was hoping that the Coyotes would have moved to Flagstaff, which is a couple hours north, where it actually does snow. Because since they go by the Arizona Coyotes, I thought it might seem stupid, but let them move to Flagstaff and play in a winter part of Arizona. But yeah, before I end this stream, see, does anyone? So for NFL stadiums, what would be? I'll ask Otis and Frank. What would be an NFL stadium that you guys have not been to that you would want to check out?
I mean, I already said Lambeau, but I want to know what everyone else thinks.
Yeah.
I wouldn't mind going to SoFi either. That looks awesome.
I've been there. I went there for the NFC Championship game, and that was a cool experience.
I think they're going to host a playoff game if the Rams win the division. If I'm correct, it's going to be like a wild card game.
Yeah. It's funny you mentioned both SoFi and Allegiant. I also went to Allegiant. I went to the Niners Raiders preseason game last year. The last game that Trey Lance played as a 49er. And I liked Allegiant, but I think that SoFi was a better stadium.
SoFi, I mean, that whole complex, by the way, that's like sports. That's like an NFL Disneyland. And I think the whole complex is even bigger than Disneyland.
Oh, yeah, the Clippers' new arena is in that same complex, right?
I heard. That's awesome. Yeah, Rams and the Clippers are now literally neighbors.
Yeah, and that'll be cool. I mean, although I kind of thought it was stupid for the Clippers to even still be in LA before that, it will be cool for the Clippers to have their own spot, so they don't have to, be second fiddle to the Lakers in their own arena. And then it'll be less of a scheduling nightmare because could you imagine having to make the NBA schedule with both the Lakers and the Clippers? Having to make sure that you don't schedule the Lakers and the Clippers for a home game on the same day. That had to be a scheduling nightmare for the NBA.
Also, it had to be a nightmare for the workers at Staples Center. By the way, I still call it that. I'll never call it the crypto arena.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah.
The thing is that the Intuit Dome, or should I say Staples Center, the employees there had to literally change the colors of everything, like the whole layout from Lakers to Clippers and Clippers to Lakers, like every sort of night or what. It was a pain in the ass, but now they don't have to do that anymore. They only will have to do it every once in a while. They literally don't have to do anything now because of the fact that the Clippers are gone. And also, but yeah, that whole complex over there in Inglewood it's literally a sports haven. I'm definitely going to go there one day, and I'm looking forward to it. And it's also not that far for opposing teams to fly out to, because LAX is very close to Inglewood. It's literally right there.
Is. Yeah, I was able, when I went there, I stayed at an airport kind of motel by LAX. I just flew in there, and that was very, very convenient. But yeah, I think I will end the stream. Sean, thank you for joining me. Oh, sorry. Do you have a final thought?
I just want to let everybody know that I hope everybody has a happy 2025. The 49ers are cooked for now, but don't lose hope yet. It ain't over till it's over, at least, in the coming years or so. I would suggest giving Kyle one last shot, but definitely some big changes got to be made, without a doubt.
100%. I say that Kyle's definitely not going to be fired after this season. Not a single chance, nor would I even consider wanting to move on from him. That being said, I hope he brings in an offensive coordinator. And there is a possibility that next year will be his last season, though. But if they make the playoffs again, then we're back to, Harbaugh being, or not fucking Harbaugh, Shanahan being known as a successful coach. That being said, if somehow anything were to happen to Brock Purdy these last two games, then that might be almost a definite it being Shanahan's last season next year. So we'll see what happens. Thank you to everyone in the chat. Thank you to Frank Weber, who appreciate you joining me. Thank you to Otis, as always, one of my longtime friends. Rocky New Era hopped in for a little bit. Thank you to Sentinel. Thank you to Ernie Chavez and the Skills, who are in for a little bit, as well as where you're hiding, CPG, Carolina Panthers guy, and the homie Shafiki, who watched on Twitch. Hope everyone has a safe New Year's 2025. Make it a good year for you and your loved ones. Just do whatever makes you happy in 2025. And remember to treat other people the way they want to be treated. Peace.